This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, gang? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We got a banger today because, to quote Gary Bettman and Michael Remis, we have a trade to announce. The Rutger McGroarty era in Winnipeg. I was to say it's over. It never even got started. Before signing a contract to Winnipeg Jets, Rutger is out, traded for Brayden Yager, star center of the Moose Jaw Warriors, the WHL champions, in a trade, bizarrely, of 14th overall picks in the NHL draft on back-to-back years. This is going to be the story today on the program, but we're not going to forget about the Bombers. We had already lined up Marshall Ferguson to join us from the Hammer. So we'll have Marsh come on for a few minutes to get the latest on the Tabbies as they come into Princess Auto Stadium on Friday night to take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers after their back-to-back sweep of the BC Lions. Ken Wiebe is on today, and I imagine that Ken will be fired up to join us today to talk about this. Timing, sometimes we have a tough time, figuring out when Ken is coming on because of his golf schedule. Maybe Ken knew that this wasn't the day to bang out 36 on the Manitoba Golf Tour because something was coming. Listen, this is a big trade. This topic had been massive in Winnipeg for really weeks coming out of the draft, and things had sort of died down. And I know there was an element of, well, when is something going to happen? And the Winnipeg Jets did not need to make this trade right away, but I think sooner the better for the organization. What I think we've learned again about this is that Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to wait to get his price. And Yager, as we recall from conversations with a number of draft experts going into last year's draft in Nashville, was that he was the guy the Winnipeg Jets were very much interested in. We'll hopefully get a little bit more on Yager as a player from some other guests as we go forward. We will check in on the Bombers practice with Derek Taylor later on. But needless to say, this is the story today. Rutger McGroarty traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Brayden Yager of the Moose Jaw Warriors. Welcome to the program for all of you that might be new here or just jumping in to get the latest on this trade. Great to have you all with us. We are here every day, live on YouTube, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time, even in the summer. No days off for the WST boys. And, of course, available on podcast just after the program in time for your drive home. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button. Nice to see we're just up to 11.7. Welcome to all the new subscribers that have jumped on recently. And make sure that you're subscribing on the podcast. Just search Winnipeg Sports Talk. It'll come up, and you'll have fresh content around the Winnipeg Jets, Blue Bombers, and the world of sports in general, but with a local focus here in the PEG on WST. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis and dive into this, a huge thanks to all of our sponsors. New CFL 110 is up. We had so much to get to on yesterday's program after Winnipeg Sports Talk with myself and Jeff Hamilton. Big game tonight, Riders and Argos to kick things off before kickoff tonight or tomorrow before the Bombers get at it. Make sure you jump over and check out CFL 110. That, of course, is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Also want to thank Coolbet Canada. Just had a real fun time in the lock shop over at Edmonton Sports Talk. That's up for you all over this week in the Canadian Football League. Of course, Princess Auto, Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, and Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Beer Can, along with Next Door and Hoagie Boys, Breezy Bend, Assiniboia Downs, Aikens Lake, Winnipeg Goldeyes. By the way, shout out to Joey Matalovich. This is now, I'm willing to call it the best pitching season in Goldeyes history. I think he's there. 7 shutout innings, 9 Ks last night. Goldeyes get a massive win to stay on top of the division. Can't wait to see the team back next week. And of course, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge with our friends Pitt, Turan, and the gang. And we will get to, I think it's pretty clear what today's Why Not question of the day is going to revolve around. Of course, that's brought to you by Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, come on in. I will tell folks a funny story. Nothing gets Remis more like hyperventilating than a trade. and we had a meeting this morning with Connor on, a bunch of WST stuff. And, we're in the room, we're talking, and I go, hey, you guys see the trade? And we're like, what? I go, Rutger McGroarty. And the breath that Remis took, I didn't know there was enough air in the room to go, oh, it was, but hey, this is big news. We've been waiting for something like this for a long time. It'd been very quiet through August. And then this week, all the action in Edmonton and St. Louis, things happening with Johansson in Philly, the Askarov trade request. But this is the biggest news of the summer, I would say, for the Winnipeg Jets, in that there is some conclusion to the Rutger McGroarty saga that pissed off a lot of fans. I'm sure pissed off a lot of people in the Winnipeg Jet front office, considering the way things had gone right up until the draft. But Chevy, once again, I saw this. I was looking at some of the social media replies and comments, Reem, and one of the guys posted, Cheveldayoff, every time a player tries to back him into a corner and force a trade. And it was that meme of the old man that's getting robbed at knife point.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, somebody call an ambulance. And then he pulls up with the gun, but not for me.
Yeah, no.
Listen, early reports, these are both young guys, 14th overall pick. This was what the Jets had to get back. Another top prospect of equal value. And I think they've done it. And I will say this, and I haven't even looked at the chat yet, and we'll talk about it in a minute. I would suggest that, whether this is true or not, a reputation of an American player coming in, kind of maybe a little entitled, saying, hey, I need this. I'm not doing this unless I get this. Trading that for a Western Canadian kid starring in the WHL of very similar or equal potential feels like a win, and I think this is going to go a long way with the fan base as well, because God knows we've talked a lot about the Jets drafting, and there has been, for a long time, not just this year, post the McGroarty reports, a need to maybe get a little closer to home, and Brayden Yager is that guy with a great pedigree, and the guy's a winner too after taking his team all the way to win a Memorial Cup last year.
Yeah, for everyone out there who said, these damn Americans always requesting trades, which I don't necessarily agree with, but there have been a few of them, like Trouba, McGroarty, Roslovic. I don't think it's part of nationality, but that's just how it worked out. We need some more good old Western Canadian boys, Hustler and Brayden Yager, who we talked with Grant McCagg last year. He does his own recruitshockey.ca. He was projecting on his mock draft that the Jets would take Yager. I know he's friends with some scouts. He talks to a lot of people, and maybe he had some intel that the Jets were interested in Yager last year, but they ended up selecting Colby Barlow. And to get a player, he's from one province over, Saskatoon, as you mentioned, champion with Moose Jaw. What a great season he had last year, scoring 35 goals, 60 assists for 95 points. One thing with him, we know very, very good shot, and we saw that with Colby Barlow, who they drafted last year as well. He's known for his shot. He can do the curl and drag. He can score, from anywhere in the offensive zone. I think the questions for him, is he a center? Is he a winger? He needs to put a bit of weight on. How is his two-way game? And for him, for his development, he's 19 years old. He's already played 4 seasons in junior. He just signed his ELC, so you don't have to worry about signing him. But, for him, he's probably going to have to go back to, he will have to go back to junior if he doesn't make the Winnipeg Jets. And if, Rutger, who was drafted 2 years ago, maybe wasn't going to make it, I would think that that Yager is likely going back. And you have to wonder what more can this guy do after a season last year has. So again, 95 points in 57 games. 2 years ago, he had 78 in 67, and the year before, 59. So he has taken a jump every year here when he's with Moose Jaw. What kind of season will he have this upcoming year in the WHL?
Yeah, I mean, this is the unfortunate side of the CHL deal, is that when you draft, and who knows, this might have been part of the Jets' philosophy in the past of, maybe picking a few more American players in the fact that they could come and play in the American Hockey League, as 20-year-olds 2 years out, as opposed to having to go back to the junior. We'll see. You are right. I mean, he's had, played as, I guess basically, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old year. So he's 19 right now. So 19, we'll do the math. Bottom line is he's played parts of 4 seasons. In the COVID year post, he did get 24 games in, and even, as an underage, right, 18 points in 24 games, has basically been at a point a game or more for his entire junior career. Scored 34 in 21-22 and 59 points in 63 games. The next year, his draft year, 28 goals, 50 assists, 78 points in 67 games. And then last year, 57 games, 35 goals, 60 assists, 95 points, and then came up big in the playoffs as his team rolled through the Western Hockey League. 20 games played, 11 goals, 16 assists, and 27 points. Now, Yager, I've seen him, Hockey DB has him at 6 feet. I think that might be a little generous, but, 5'11" or so. The weight they have him listed is at 170. I mean, if he's still 170, there's definitely going to need to be some filling out of the young man, but very talented offensive player, is a center, a right shot center, which kind of ticks off a few boxes for the Winnipeg Jets, but also has a reputation, despite not being a massive dude, being an absolute puck hound, incredible on winning battles, and the ceiling of Brayden Yager is absolutely a top 6 center in the National Hockey League. At the end of the day, it is kind of bizarre that it's 14th overall pick in 22 for 14th overall pick in 23. But as we said before, if the Jets are trading McGroarty, much like they've done every time they have had an issue where they were maybe being forced into trade an asset, they set what they need to get back, and it is a prospect of equal or better value. And you mentioned Brayden Yager. I do recall Grant McKegg coming on the program talking about how much the Jets liked him. Well, he wasn't available when they picked. Colby Barlow ended up getting selected by the Jets at 18. Brayden Yager went off the board 5 picks earlier at 14th to Pittsburgh. So I think in a lot of ways, Cheveldayoff has checked off the boxes. The fact that this guy is a center, I think is certainly good for the Winnipeg Jets. One of the things in the big conversation around, the Sean Monahan deal this year, are you going to bring Sean Monahan back? Could he help the team this year? Absolutely. Are you willing to commit to eventually 5 years, which was what Columbus signed for him, and have Scheifele, Monahan, and Adam Lowry as your top 3 centers all on the other side of 30 for the next 5 years? I mean, I know Adam Lowry would need to have a new contract at some point as the captain. I expect that to happen. It's pretty clear that I think Cheveldayoff held firm to his price, got the guy that he wanted, and listen, Rutger can go, and I'm not sure whether he just waltzes into the Pittsburgh lineup. Probably a little bit more room for a guy like that to do it, but the Jets get a top prospect of their own, coming from this part of the world, down from Saskatchewan, and I would say that if you laid out what the Winnipeg Jets needed to get back, a young, talented player under team control for a similar term, they got that today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from Brayden Yager and seeing him at training camp. And, this is going to be a young guy that's going to come in and do everything he can to make the team. We've talked a lot about Brad Lambert. We've talked a lot about Cole Perfetti. Listen, Perfetti is obviously on the team, once he signs his contract, and, according to Scott O'Neill, will be in the top 6. Be interesting to see how tough Brayden Yager can make the decision for the Winnipeg Jets in training camp as to whether he can stick around, at least at the beginning of the season, for 9 games, or go back to the Western Hockey League for 1 more year. Unfortunately, no option to send him to the Moose.
Yeah, and we're putting out the poll, Huss. Are you happy with the return for Rutger McGroarty? Shout out to, we just hit 600 people in chat. I think this is double.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, we haven't gone anywhere. It's been a bit slow here. I know people were watching Olympics while we were on for part of August, but of the 230 votes, 90% of people who voted say yes, they're happy with the return. Kevin Cheveldayoff, I think we said it before after the Dubois trade. He is certainly a wizard. When boxed into a corner, he's able to get out and pull magic out of a hat. And, there's talk here, well, why would Pittsburgh do this trade if Yager is such a strong prospect? Well, you get a prospect who's a year older, who, can go to the AHL. You can play him in the NHL. And I think they wanted someone maybe who's a bit grittier type of player. Oh, is he younger, Rutger?
Rutger's a year older.
Yeah. So you just get to, further advance the development. If Yager couldn't play in the NHL, Pittsburgh, they want to get back in the playoffs. Rutger, he can play in the NHL this year, or at least he believes he's an NHL player. We'll see how he does at training camp. But I know after this trade, Hustler, everyone picking up the schedule. I know single game tickets, are they on sale? They put out game packs. Look at it. Oh, first month of the season, October 20, Sunday afternoon, Pittsburgh in Winnipeg. So if Rutger, I'm assuming he thinks he's an NHL player, so he's probably going to be on the team. So I imagine, I'm curious what kind of reception he will get. It's first month. We're not going to have to wait long. Remember last year, Dubois' first game was like the first week as well. We were there. Maybe the most, not the most, but it was up there for depressing regular season Jets games. Hopefully that one is different, and I'm sure the crowd will be out, especially a lot of Pittsburgh brings people out, but I imagine Rutger will get a nice acknowledgement from the fans at, what is it called now? Bell? We haven't mentioned, it's called Canada Life Center.
Canada Life Center.
I almost said Bell MTS Place.
Jesus.
Look, it's summer.
It's not
We haven't
Bell.
talked about it in so long. I'm forgetting who's on the team. I'm forgetting the name of the arena. It is Canada Life Center now.
Focus. By the way, what are we doing having a 2:00 afternoon game on a Sunday in the middle of NFL season? Actually, we got the Wild in at 5:00.
I don't make the
13th.
schedule.
I have not spent enough time looking at the schedule. I'm going to need to start doing that right now.
Oh, okay. Good question from Ray Servings. Does Rutger get a video tribute? Do they welcome him back if he never signed?
It's just a clip of him patronizing all of us with his stops, with Jamie Thomas, with us. So excited to be a Winnipeg Jet. Can't wait to be there. Maybe a few clips of him charming everybody at development camp last year.
Yes.
It would be, if anything, we should do a video tribute to him. They probably won't do that. They probably won't do that at Canada Life Center at the game, but we'll do a welcome back Rutger WST video tribute with just some of the highlights of him gushing about how happy he was to be a Winnipeg Jet and being picked by the team. Great idea.
We should make it. We could do a nice 1-minute sizzle reel of him talking about how much he loves Winnipeg and saying welcome back, Rutger. I like that idea. And to be fair, he was a great interview. He was great
awesome
to talk to. Said all the right things, but I guess was feeling differently behind the scenes. But I think this is a trade that worked out for both teams. This will be one that will we be talking about this one, next year, August 22nd, when there's nothing going on. Oh, it's the 1-year anniversary of the Rutger Yager trade. What does everyone think about it? I'm sure it's going to be up there. And funny, not even like a top trade that the Jets have made, but it's certainly a significant one. And you certainly noticed Rutger's presence was missed at development camp, and you weren't going to have him at training camp, most likely. Well, you weren't going to this year, unless something changed and he decided to sign. But what kind of impact is Yager going to have? He did get into some preseason games last year with Pittsburgh, and maybe he does push, make them to be one of the later cuts. I wouldn't expect him to make the team, but certainly will make his presence known this season.
Well, I guess, again, we'll focus more in on Yager with Ken. And I saw Ezzy mention in chat, shout out to the big guy, Ez, pumped for the IC boys to get back at it next month. Frank Corrado tweeted that Yager was one of my favorites to watch at the Memorial Cup this past year. Great shot, but proved that he's more than just a shooter. And, with all the uncertainty about McGroarty put to bed, and you bring in Brayden Yager, you look at the prospect pool that the Jets have coming into this season and next year and the year after. Brad Lambert was awesome last year, and he'll be pushing for playing time in the NHL right now this year. You add in Brayden Yager, a center with the upside of, being, a guy that can play top six, potentially even top line at some point, depending on how things go. You add in Colby Barlow, who, of course, was picked 5 selections later than Brayden Yager in the draft last season. Nikita Chibrikov, who's maybe a bit of a different kind of player, might not project to potentially be top line or top 6, but certainly did everything the team could have asked for him and more, and earned a spot in that final game of the year in the mix. And then over onto the blue line. And Elias Salmonson, who we haven't talked a lot about, but is going to be coming to camp and trying to make the club as well, and may very well spend time with the Moose to start the year. But I do expect we will see NHL playing time for Elias. The Jets had to trade arguably their top prospect, come out looking pretty good, and this group now looks pretty well-rounded when you project it ahead to 2 and 3 seasons from now for this next sort of crop of young stars coming in and becoming Winnipeg Jets. And tying it back to where these guys are from. And I asked Cheveldayoff this as well. And it's funny because, on Sunday when I did the event with Chevy at Breezy Bend, there was a bunch of questions from members that were sent in. I picked a few of those and, went along some other areas. But, more than one person said in, with what's happened with Rutger McGroarty in the past, are you more likely to pick Western Canadian players now going forward as opposed to Americans? And he said, listen, that's our job to handle those situations. We want our scouts identifying the best players, and they will make the case for that, and then we'll decide, as to where to go from here. This is not insignificant that this young man's coming from Saskatchewan in the Western Hockey League in the return for, a guy that was from south of the border. And listen, we think about the Americans that are on the team and have been on. Wheeler, Buff, Kyle Connor, the list goes on. American players have been a huge part of anything the Jets have done since they came back in 2011. So it's foolish to make this, we don't want American players, we want Canadian players. The one thing the Jets haven't had, outside of Adam Lowry, who has been one of their best draft picks ever, they haven't had a lot of success or a lot of top picks that have come out of the Western Hockey League. And, as this team tries to grow its fan base and I got to tell you, there'll be a lot of people from Moose Jaw making the trip to Winnipeg wearing their old Warriors jersey supporting Brayden Yager. So I think this is a win, off the ice. But the bottom line is it's about production on the ice. You want to get the best player. But this is a guy, as we mentioned, Remo, that the Jets have been in on for a pretty long time. Do you have that Grant McKegg clip?
Yeah, so we did, first of all, I wanted to play this clip because I didn't have it quite ready off the start of the show. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure this works. I don't want to blow it here.
As you can tell, we have a trade.
So that's the
we got to use
alert.
that forever.
Yeah,
Live from the Sphere in Vegas. The trade alert.
Yeah, so I should just have this thing on loop here. spinning. Yeah. Sorry, podcast listeners. We're playing the draft sphere trade alert, which was epic. But yeah, Grant McCagg, recruithockey.ca, was on with you before the 2023 draft. And he made a point to get in before you wrapped up that he thought the Jets were in on Brayden Yager. I tweeted it out and I joked that I'm like, Grant, you were a year too early on this one, but they seem to get their guy. Here is the clip from last year.
Yager to Winnipeg. That's what I've got in the mock draft, by the way. Brayden Yager going to the Jets. So
he's what, Moose Jaw?
Yeah, so not too far away.
So there you have it. Grant nailed it. He just wasn't available for the Winnipeg Jets. They got Colby Barlow, but Brayden Yager now is. And, man, there's been some hilarious stuff coming out of this today. Yager, isn't he 52 years old?
Yeah.
So there's all of those jokes. And then every spot, BP and all the places around Canada Life Center, maybe not this year or next year, are going to have a Jaeger bomb special on game nights as well. So his name's got a lot of things. But hey, exciting young guy, and anyone that paid attention to the Western Hockey League playoffs knew that not only was this guy that was a leader of this team, could put up big numbers in the regular season, but came to play big time at the most important time of the year. And that is the playoffs. And I think everyone that remembers what happened in the playoffs last year for the Winnipeg Jets, all in on a guy that can come in when the games mean the most.
Yeah, and I see people, saying in chat he wears number 29. I don't know if there's going to be a drive to replace all the old 29 jerseys that we've
big name bar sale.
Yeah, big name bar, because they were blowing those 29 jerseys out. So imagine that. Imagine the opportunity there to have some update. Like, you don't want to have everyone in the arena wearing old jerseys, right? So something to watch for. Now, he's not on the Jets yet, but I'm sure that number is definitely available right now, if I recall.
I see Mark Sports Video mentioned he's got a bomb of a shot. I mean, an absolute trigger guy. But as Frankie Corrado said, much more than that. I know Ken's doing a lot of digging. He'll have plenty for us talking about Brayden Yager coming up in just a little bit. Don't forget, we got CFL action tonight. Riders and Argos. Chad Kelly returns. That was one of the many topics we covered yesterday on CFL 110, brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Gang, the push is on. If you want to revolutionize your garage, make it clean, organized before the snow flies, give our pal Pat Canuga a call, 204-999-1234 at Garage Living Winnipeg. It's been a real busy and productive summer, transforming dozens of garages around the city for Pat and the gang. But now they're gearing up for a busy fall as the push is on to get clients booked, garages designed, and installations complete before the winter. Don't miss your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with polyaspartic floor coating, made in Canada premium metal cabinetry and slat wall storage solutions, as well as the opportunity for a lift so you can work on that car or your sled all winter long in the comfort, warmth, and beauty of your redone garage. Check out their website at garageliving.com for examples of their amazing work, or give our pal Pat Canuga a call. He's loving his move from early morning radio guy to garage designer. You can get him at 204-999-1234 to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him in their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg. Garage is made for living. CFL 110 now live on the podcast feed. Search CFL 110 and subscribe, or watch it on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. Our friends at Rolly's Transfer have had quite the summer. This is sort of moving season, but people are moving 12 months a year. And if you have moving needs, our friends at Rolly's are the most trusted name in the moving business in Manitoba. Family owned and operated, and doing it for over 60 years. Their logistics business takes them throughout the city and province on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible timing, and great rates. And they can help you out with the great rate and an even better one because they've got a special deal for WST listeners and viewers. Check out their website at rollies.com. Up on the right corner, they've got the request an estimate feature. Pop in there, let her know when and where you're moving, what you're moving. You can even upload pictures of furniture and boxes, and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies from the fellas at Rollies. If you're on the move in 2024 or next year, get the white glove treatment from our friends at Rollies Transfer. Find out more online or book or request an estimate today at rollies.com. Shout out to the gang at Consolidated Supply. Looks like we might get a little bit of rain today. It's going to be nice on the weekend. But listen, just call it Consolidated Supply has so much waiting for you for your home, your residence, or your business that you really need to get down there and see it for yourself. They're the leaders in irrigation systems and solutions, artificial turf, and golf carts. Of course, the new and used golf cart dealer, the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, as well as a whole bunch of wild things to trick out your golf cart if you're into that as well. But other great options for your property, like hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchen options. And of course, they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. It's almost too much for me to get through today. What you should do is pop by and see them in person at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, just off Lage, or find out more online at cte.ca. And of course, another beautiful summer weekend coming up, the last one before Labor Day this summer. You got to max out and make the most of it. And many of you are jumping on boats, you're out camping, you're getting on ATVs, whatever you're doing, you got to make sure those tools are powered. And Manitoba Battery's been powering Manitobans for a number of years as your local leaders in batteries of all shapes and sizes. They've got a new location as well. You can pop by the original location on Logan Avenue, or you can see them at 452 Dover Court in the south side of the city for the best prices and service. Speaking of price, they beat the pants off the big box stores, allowing you to shop local and get the best price in town on all of your batteries, period. And better yet, we know how busy you are getting ready for these weekends. Just give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com, and they'll deliver it to you for free with any purchase over $60 inside the perimeter of Winnipeg. It's just that easy. Shout out to Donnie and his great staff. Always get amazing service there when you get your batteries at Manitoba Battery. Order online today or find out more at manitobabattery.com. All right. So, Reem, what's up? We're going to have Marsh pop in shortly, or?
Yeah, he's coming out of the woods for this one, and I don't know if the internet there is the best, so I might have to call him. I'm just texting him. I sent him a new link.
Yeah, okay, we can do a quick call if we need to. Ken's going to pop in about 15 minutes, and we'll really dive into this trade. Looking forward to seeing what Wiebe's got to say about it. Our why not question of the day today is very simple. Are you happy for the return the Jets got for Rutger McGroarty? 1-for-1. The 14th overall pick in 2023, Brayden Yager, for the 14th overall pick in 22, Rutger McGroarty. That's our Not AutoCorp Why Not question of the day, brought to you by Not at Waverly and McGillivray. If you're with us live on YouTube right now, you can vote. Overwhelmingly positive. 87% right now of 389 votes are saying yes to this. And I'm looking a ton. I mean, the chat has not popped like this in a while throughout the summer. But it just does seem that there's a lot. I mean, listen, there's a lot of hope. People understand the situation the Winnipeg Jets were in and knew that the Jets needed a similar prospect that could come in and be a big part of the Winnipeg Jet future. As Grant McKegg mentioned, the Winnipeg Jets have been connected to Yager for a while, but he wasn't available when they made their selection of Colby Barlow last year in Nashville. And I'm sure it took a while because, I mean, the Penguins were very, very high on Yager, and of course had already signed him to a deal. Let's see if we can get our pal Marshall Ferguson on here.
Hello.
Marsh, it's us, Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Sorry for the troubles, boys.
Hey, no problem. We got a busy show today with the big Jets trade, but we did not want to miss out on a quick chance to chat with you about this Bomber game. Again, Ken Wiebe coming up in just about 10, 15 minutes or so. So stick around for Wiebe. But Marsh, I've just got to ask you, what is going on with the Hamilton Tiger Cats? They won 2 games in a row. I thought, okay, they've gotten off the mat. That was the team that started off so poorly like the Elks that was going to turn it around. It's gone from bad to worse, and that humiliation last week was, well, the last straw for their defensive coordinator, and now Chris Jones is in the mix coming in. What's up with the Ticats coming into the Peg on Friday?
Well, I remember when I was doing Hamilton radio, and it just kind of sometimes felt like desperation, and that's what this kind of screams of for me. And it's not that Chris Jones isn't a good defensive football coach. He is. It's the idea that you can't solve things with the people that you have in-house. And if you think about the evolution of the coaching staff over the last couple of years, right, it's like from Orlando moving upstairs to Scott Milanovich coming in, and then Scott Milanovich now is making moves defensively, even though, he really believes in Mark Washington as a coach. But obviously there's pressure from higher on up that, okay, we have to change something here. Well, at this point, you have gone through 2 of your 3 coordinators since the start of the year because they swapped out the special teams coordinator at the beginning of this season. Dennis McKnight comes in. Now they're swapping out defense. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit all over the place. I think the injuries certainly have not helped, but defensively, they've really struggled all year. The back end is a pretty young group overall. If you look at the linebackers and the defensive linemen, like they're all acquired from other places and being thrown in together and trying to find combinations of chemistry. I think that's been really tough for them. So, big picture, Hamilton, they don't really have answers right now. And Edmonton coming in, and we know what the Elks have been like for the last couple of years, and beating Hamilton in back-to-back seasons. I think that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. You might say, oh, it's just bad timing, it's this, it's that. It's like, no, those Edmonton victories in Hamilton have been tone setters on what the season has looked and felt like.
Well, I mean, down 32-3 at halftime last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that was an abject humiliation. Yeah. And I mean, for a team that has the great support that the Ticats have and a lot of people that are passionate about them and, legitimate hopes that they would be back as more of a legit team contending this year, that had to be sort of the final straw. Like, I don't think many people were surprised that something happened in Hamilton after the way things went last weekend.
And my fear in all of this is, well, okay, so that was that game. Now they've got, an opportunity here to try and get themselves turned around. And then what's the one after that? Oh, it's a little thing called Labor Day. And all of a sudden you start looking around and going, okay, so Hamilton's a bit of a mess. They're struggling to find chemistry. They can't get answers. They're making changes on their coaching staff. Well, Toronto has the very obvious upheaval of Chad Kelly being back in the fold, being reinstated with that last chance agreement with the CFL. So honestly, it's just going to be a weird vibe, I think, in Hamilton for Labor Day, because you've got basically 2 kind of grumpy fan bases, 2 teams that are really frustrated trying to figure it out. If I had to guess, what that results in is way too chippy of a game, because if there's anything I know about Hamilton and Toronto, when the rosters get frustrated and the fans are frustrated and the donut box there at Tim Hortons Field just feels like it builds up and builds up, all of that tends to release itself on Labor Day for better or worse. So I hope people don't make bad decisions in that game. But, yeah, that's going to be a very, very strange QEW rivalry game.
What have you thought about the Bombers, the way they've turned it around? Like, I mean, they were 2-6 facing a home against BC. There was a lot of people thought that this might be the beginning of the end of this season after that rough start. Historically good defense against Vernon Adams and Nathan Rourke. And now they get the Ticats coming in. Where are you at on the Bombers right now after a very uncharacteristic start to the season?
I think the best thing, it might not even be Brady Oliveira running the rock hard and them setting the tone and using the running game. I think it's the fact that Nick Dembski looked more like himself than he has all year. And you could say, well, it's more important for Zach Collaros to play at a high level. Obviously, yeah, he's the quarterback. He touches the ball every single play. But you know what helps Zach Collaros play at a really, really high level? Every time Nick Dembski gets a touch and starts breaking tackles and twisting and turning down the field or running past defenders or settling down in between zones. Like, to me, Nick is the thing that makes that offense really go. And you could say, well, we're better when Kenny Lawler's in, or we're better when the offensive line is moving bodies. Yeah, that's fine. People can have their opinion. To me, Nick Dembski is absolutely the engine behind that offense. And he certainly gives the emotion, I think, as a local guy as well, to the people in the stands. So to be able to come home and take on a struggling Tiger Cats team and be able to see the way that Nick Dembski is getting things back into a rhythm and starting to play more like himself, which is making everybody else around him feel more like, oh, okay, maybe we're not broken. Like maybe this is not a wasted season and we're not just going to, have everything go up in flames and, we're not going to make a Grey Cup push when we have the home Grey Cup in next season and all the rest. I think it's been a lot of doomsday thoughts because Bombers fans have been very, very lucky throughout much of the last couple of years. And now seeing Dembski bringing them back to life and Collaros rounding into form, I think the best thing that you can say is it felt like Bombers football. And Bombers football has been pretty damn good over the last 5 years.
We joked, I was on in Edmonton with the fellas, and I'm like, you're going to get a chance. We're not going to see the second best forward in the league start for the Elks this year. How about Terrell Ford? I mean, a breakout season maybe is underselling it. He's been the top-ranked corner a number of weeks over the season so far. And this Bomber defense, what they've been doing for the last month has been, I think, far beyond anyone's wildest expectations of a team that did have quite a bit of turnover and added some much younger players.
Yeah, absolutely. And the back end, I think, is really the story for them because, yes, you do have Jackson Jeffcoat obviously being gone. And there's been some scary stats that I've seen out there about Willie Jefferson's production when Jackson Jeffcoat wasn't in the lineup when they were still on the same roster. I think that's gone away a little bit because Willie, just like I talk about with Dembski and Collaros and Brady Oliveira, when Willie is getting knockdowns and Willie's harassing quarterbacks and making Nathan Rourke feel uncomfortable, it's like, oh, okay, he's still got it. Like we need to stop questioning, oh, is he old? Is he hurt? It's like, no, he's still getting it done. It might be at a slower rate this year than it's been in the past, but he can still absolutely fly off the ball. So, but yeah, Terrell Ford, it's one of my favorite things that I kind of think about in the full circle nature of the last year in the CFL is it was late in the OUA season last year, and I was watching my alma mater McMaster at home taking on the Waterloo Warriors. And obviously that's where Tyrell and Trey played their university football because that's, the only team that was willing to give them an opportunity to be the best version of themselves, both as a quarterback and a corner, respectively. So Tyrell ends up essentially getting into a spot where he was out of training camp last year with the Green Bay Packers, and I recognized him on the sideline standing next to the Waterloo coaching staff. And I asked a couple of people who were around there, and they said, yeah, he's basically holding out. Like, he wants a chance to play, but right now he doesn't think he has the right fit, or he's not getting the money that he wants, or he wants to go back to the National Football League. And it's like, okay, cool, yeah, good luck. But I think a lot of people thought he overrated himself in that situation and that he should have come back sooner. Anybody who's watched him over the last couple of weeks, you can see why Tyrell believes in himself. And the other thing I'll say, too, is both of the Ford brothers, something that I think they really do have in common, is they get counted out, doubted, they have opportunities taken away from them, and then when they get their opportunity, they make the most of it. And Tyrell has always made the most of his opportunities. He's always wanted to be a star corner in the Canadian Football League. His athletic measurables are NFL-worthy. He is a pretty special player, and I just feel like Winnipeg, it's not like it's the type of guy that you're going to build your defense around when you're playing that far away from the football, but to have a consistent threat to jump passes on the outside and to have the vision that he has and understand quarterback play at a pretty high level when he's still a really young guy, to me, that just screams that he's got huge upside over the next couple of years.
Marsh, so considering all the turmoil around the Tabbies and where they're at coming out of getting their asses kicked by Edmonton last week at home, do you have any expectations that they can hang in there in Winnipeg and Princess Auto Stadium, which will have another 30,000 plus in it tomorrow night in the Peg?
You know what? My biggest thing with this is whether or not Hamilton can stick with anybody, not just Winnipeg and, not even necessarily playing on the road. Can Hamilton start the game well? That's the biggest question, because whether it's injuries, interceptions, lack of offensive production, giving up long touchdown drives defensively, they really do struggle to find a way to start games at a high level. And to his credit, Scott Milanovic in the Tiger Cats games I've covered this year when I've spoken to him, basically just says straight out, yeah, we're a bad team at the start of games. We have to fix that. Part of that is coaching. We're trying to coach that into them. We're trying to communicate that this needs to be better from start to finish, and that means right away. Like when we kick off, I don't know if anybody told you guys, but when the first quarter begins and the clock starts rolling, the game is happening. And Hamilton seems to have forgotten that at various points throughout this season. So their point differential has been better, especially in games they've gone on to win in the first quarter, but they've really, really struggled to get out of the gates with a fast start. So if they're going to do it against Winnipeg, they have absolutely no choice but to begin by at least breaking even. Like if they are trailing, they're going to be in a bad spot, I would say, later on in that game, because Winnipeg, especially after what they did to BC, I think the confidence is growing and growing. Hamilton has to just hang in the first quarter, try to not make any big mistakes, don't throw the ball away, don't fumble it. You have to try and get a decent return here or there, but you can't lose a possession on special teams or a return fumble or something like that. So if they can do that, then, yeah, they can hang around into the second quarter, and the longer that they're there, the more the belief will grow. I got a feeling, though, I got to say, Hustler, that I really do think this is start of the game. Winnipeg comes flying out, looks like their old selves. And I'm not going to say blows the doors off Hamilton, but I think by the end of the first quarter, it might be a 10 or a 14-point game, and Winnipeg will control the action from start to finish. That's my feeling on this point, which, again, sets up a very interesting Labor Day if Hamilton struggles against Edmonton and then Winnipeg and then has to come home in front of their fans on Labor Day.
Yeah, well, and I think the Bomber offense could really use a big explosion and get feeling as good as possible heading into Regina for their own big Labor Day tete-a-tete. Hey, just before we go, because we've got Ken Wiebe coming up to get back to this big Jets news today with the Rutger McGroarty, Brayden Yager trade. Chad Kelly is back tonight. They're taking on the Riders, who have to be in an orderly mood, somehow losing that game that they played so well in against last week against Montreal. What are your expectations for Chad Kelly tonight, and what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I think as a CFL quarterback, Nathan Rourke is better at operating the Canadian game, than Chad Kelly is, which I think paints exactly what the answer is on this, which is we saw Nathan Rourke come back, who has a better understanding of Canadian football, has spent more time playing Canadian football, understands Canadian football defenses, I would say, at a higher level, and he still struggled against Winnipeg. So I think Chad is going to struggle. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. And the last thing I would say on this is, for any quarterback, you can get from your first to your second to your third read. Sure, you know the playbook, you know your receivers, their body language, all the rest. My concern is if you can't get through those progressions and find your checkdowns, or if you have self-doubt because you haven't been in the lineup for so long, you can hold on to the football for way too long, and that makes a lot of big issues for the offensive line. That changes the way that they'll end up calling the game. That changes the way that you have to be aggressive on defense because you know that Chad isn't up to speed right now and isn't in a game rhythm. It's going to take, I would think, for most quarterbacks, at least 2 to 3 games until Chad Kelly looks like himself. He's got a great arm. He's got a lot of talent. Sure, good on him. He can go out. He can rip it around. But the CFL is not just about having a big arm and being able to throw it down the field. You got to be able to execute, and you got to be able to manage the game. If Nathan Rourke struggled doing that in his first game back, I'm going to say that Chad Kelly's going to struggle as well, at least for a week or two.
And then I guess and everything's setting up for what's an amazing week coming up in the Canadian Football League on Labor Day. And I mean, just quickly on the way out, I mean, can you remember the last time the West was so wide open? I mean, it certainly didn't start that way, but we're going to head into Labor Day potentially with all 5 teams within 2 games of each other and a ton of divisional play to come in October.
Yeah, it's crazy what happens when the East finally figures their bleep out, huh? Like if you can actually win a couple of games here and there, if you're in the East Division taking on the West. I mean, for the Montreal Alouettes at this point to be 9-1 and be undefeated against the West and undefeated on the road, like that means that they've gone West a variety of times and they've had success against West Division opponents. So that's not something I expected to see at the start of the season. To see Ottawa have a really good record against the West, that's not something I expected to see. But this is a little thing we like to call parity, which is very healthy for leagues and is also very interesting come playoff time, because I don't mathematically think this is possible, but I kind of was joking with somebody the other day. Who are we going to see crossover from 4th in the East and go play in the West in the playoffs? Like, the idea of having a crossover go the other direction has been something that has completely laughable, impossible. You would never even come close to touching that. This year, you're like, well, the East is pretty good. And then you look at the actual standings and you go, oh, yeah, there's absolutely no chance that could happen. But, yeah, the West being this close, man, I think what it's going to really create is whatever team is on the outside looking in. I mean, even the bottom 2 teams in the West are going to be really disappointed and feel like they should have been in the playoffs if they would have, could have, should have, a couple of games here and there. And then the other part of that is you're going to have a tremendous, I think, West semifinal and West final, because there's not going to be much of anything separating those teams.
Marsh, thanks so much for doing this. Enjoy the games this weekend. Are you doing any of them? Where are you at?
Yes, I am actually. Thank you. It's so Edmonton, Montreal. I have that game coming up on Sunday, so I'm excited to call that one. I'm currently in the process of riding a loaner bike from Honda Canada. I have a Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sport ES-DCT, which is a big 1100cc, 600-pound monster, and I have ridden it from Hamilton all the way through to Peterborough. I'm off to a mini GP event, which is kind of like, younger kid motorcycle racing, commentating that actually tomorrow. Saturday, going to dip my toes down into Vermont, go for a little ride through the mountains, and then back up to Montreal to call the game on Sunday, and back home to Hamilton on the bike on Monday. So adventurous week on a very, very fun bike from Honda Canada. So yeah, got a lot going on, but it's been a lot of fun.
Just another day or a week in the life of Marshall Ferguson. Hey, enjoy the bikes. Have a great call on the weekend, and let's do this again soon. Thanks for jumping on, Marshall.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy. All right, there's Marshall Ferguson, and again, we're getting back to the Jets. Kenny is just warming up that rubber arm from the bullpen, and he will be joining us in just a moment. Of course, every time we talk CFL and the Bombers on WST, we do it for our friends at Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and of course, their home, Princess Auto Stadium. I see Atomic saying we're now above 31,000 for tomorrow night's game. If you haven't got your tickets, I would suggest you do that ASAP. And if you are going to the game, make sure you take in the Princess Auto tailgate zone, which is going to be rocking before tomorrow's game just outside the stadium. Of course, $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs, inflatables for the kids, entertainment. It is the place to be before all Blue Bomber games. And, of course, the Princess Auto team. Well, Princess Auto, founded, headquartered right here in Winnipeg. Proud sponsors of the Bombers and, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk. You can visit them in-store, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, for the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. You can also shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I hope Princess Auto Stadium has their Canadian club stocked up for tomorrow. Because with sunny and 26, an absolutely perfect day. If the other games this year are any indication, Bomber fans are going to be ready to have a very good time at the biggest party in the province. Canadian Club, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, available at the Rum Hut throughout the stadium. But you can also pick up Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, which is an amazing summer drink. It's pre-mixed cocktail in a can, ready to go. Try it at the game tomorrow night. And of course, you can also pick it up the next time you pop in looking for a rack of beers at your local vendor. But Canadian Club and Ginger Ale and the entire CC family of products available on your next stop at your local Manitoba Liquor Marts. Shout out to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town. Gang, and they've been doing it since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, give them a call. They've got vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door to match your home, they've got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors as well. Give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston. And just as we bring in Kenny Wiebe, who is on location today, we got hockey news today. Training camp's just around the corner. So is fall. Guys, if you're looking into your closet and realize that with the change of seasons, you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles. Great sale on shirts right now, 25% off when you get 3. And, of course, the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. If you're getting married or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the fellas at FO at a 15% discount when the wedding party gets their suits at F Apparel. They're down at 190 Smith Street. See them in store or check them out online and make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, live on location. I believe this got to be Tamarack Week. Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press joins us. Weber, perfect day. I know you're you sometimes are difficult to pin down. But this Thursday visit today worked out quite well with the big news. How are things out west for you?
Yeah, Huss, great to be with you, my friend.
Hold on one sec. Remo, you got the echo on Ken.
Yeah, sorry, I had that on for Marshall. 1 sec. I will take it off right
Perfect.
now.
There we
Great
go.
to be with you as always, gentlemen. Repping some Clear Lake activity here. It's been a fun week so far at the Tamarack up here in Clear Lake. We got the Women's Open on in the backdrop here. Great little backyard setup at the Fowler residence, and got some big news today while we were wandering around the property here today with finally some resolution. Huss, we had been waiting for resolution on this matter, and looks like a trade that I think both sides will be quite happy with, but definitely going to be something that I think from the scouts that I've spoken to today, Jets fans are going to be pretty happy with the return. Obviously, we've talked about the layers of this issue for a long time, Huss. Tough for draft and development team to miss out on a player without even playing a single game in the organization when he was drafted 2 years ago. But at the same time, they're getting a player who is going to be helping them in the long run here, Huss. And, I know some people were hoping for a little bit more of an immediate spark in terms of, help right now. Brayden Yager is a guy who has a great shot. He scored a lot of points in the Western Hockey League so far. He's 19 years old. So he's in the Colby Barlow situation. For those who don't know, that means NHL or junior for him. No Manitoba Moose option, at least not out of the gate until their respective seasons are over. This is a guy who is going to probably play a massive role and wear a letter for Team Canada at the World Junior coming up. And hey, now it's up to him. If he can, I wouldn't be shocked if he got into a game or two. But again, I think it's most likely that he'll be headed back to junior before that 9 games are up. In terms of maybe a potential early run. But again, this is a great long-term play for the Winnipeg Jets. Skilled player, rocket shot, very dependable two-way player. Again, Huss, you see a guy who has 95 points, you think he's just an offensive wizard. From the people that I spoke to, this is a guy that even if he's not scoring, he's a really good contributor in terms of his ability to. He's a guy who killed penalties at 17 and 18 years old at the Western Hockey League level. Very good defensively, and probably a little bit better skater at this stage of his career than Rutger McGroarty, and high character kid, and really good vision and hockey sense as well. So for the folks who don't know much about the Moose Jaw Warriors right shot center, I think they're going to come to like him pretty quickly here. And he's the kind of guy who's going to turn some heads at training camp, much like Brad Lambert did at his first Jets camp for me. Kenny,
It is... I mean, I've been saying all along that if the Jets, I'd hope that maybe this would work out. I mean, and Naz in the chat was mentioning, this trade doesn't make Rutger less of a prospect. I mean, he's still the same guy that he was the last couple of years when we were all looking forward to him signing and hopefully being a big part of the team moving forward. But you have to play the card that you're dealt with. And, for whatever reason, people got in, the advisors around, and all of a sudden, they weren't going to get the automatic spot in and went elsewhere. And that obviously turned some people off. But for the Jets to make this trade, and I'm sort of with you. I mean, we were doing a meeting this morning today when this news broke.
Yeah.
We immediately go to look at Pittsburgh's thing, and I'm like looking at their roster. I'm like, there's not a single player on this team that I think could possibly be in this trade that would look like, oh, that would be great. And then it was like, obviously, this is Brayden Yager. And then you look, 14th overall pick, Rutger in 22, 14th overall pick, Brayden Yager in 2023. We had Grant McKegg on, and he called the Jets taking Yager last year in the draft. Well, He wasn't there. He went 5 spots ahead of Barlow. They basically get a prospect from that similar thing with the high-end upside at the center position and 1 year younger. It might be a little bit more of a weight, I guess, but Cheveldayoff did seem to kind of tick off the boxes. Talented young player with high upside, under team control, has just signed his ELC. And listen, the elephant in the room about all this is that this is the first time in a long time the Jets have had a top elite prospect coming out of the Western Hockey League in Western Canada.
Yeah, a guy from the prairies, and I mean, that wasn't a prerequisite, but I certainly think that it helps in this situation and scenario. Huss, I mean,
Hasn't gone over poorly in the WST chat today.
no,
I'll tell you
I'm
that
guessing.
much.
I'm guessing that it is certainly welcome news. We've talked a lot about the Jets not drafting by passport, but when the players are relatively equal, and you have an opportunity to add someone who's from Western Canada, that's going to be an obvious bonus. And as you mentioned, Huss, the impediment of not signing is not there. He's already signed, so Yager would be a guy who I think would be pretty excited about the opportunity to play in the prairies. And again, for the flip side of this, for folks who haven't seen yet, Rutger has signed his ELC with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we would imagine that means he's going to be in the NHL this year. But Huss, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time with the Jets going into their extensions with Hellebuck and Scheifele and having to make a decision on Nikolai Ehlers this summer and potentially Kyle Connor as early as next summer or after January 1st. Having Brayden Yager available on an ELC is going to be helpful, whether that's one season down the road or 1.5 or whatever it ends up being. This is a player who, we've been talking for months since Scott O'Neill took over, and all the comparisons to the Dallas Stars were being made about Wyatt Johnston and Logan Stankoven entering the lineup. I mean, Brayden Yager will be that player for the Winnipeg Jets, whether it's, in 8 months from now, or, a year from now, or a year and a half, or whatever it ends up taking. And as mentioned, I mean, if this guy comes in and has a camp like Wyatt Johnston had, who knows? He could. There's opportunity there, as we've been talking about. I just think that in terms of expectations, it's most likely he'll be going back to the Western Hockey League, just given the additional maturation process that probably has to occur with most 19-year-olds. So this guy is a high-end prospect, really well liked in the scouting world. And you're right, Huss. I mean, when Elliott's tweet went out this morning, Mike McIntyre and I were starting to work, who's in this deal? Like maybe Owen Pickering on defense, the Manitoban, but then we thought, well, I thought that Yager would be almost in that untouchable category. I know he's 14th overall, but it seemed like they were pretty high on him given how well he played for the Western Hockey League championship winning Moose Jaw Warriors this year. But obviously it's interesting, Huss, right? So the Penguins are getting the player with a little bit more size. We know what Rutger's attributes are. Potential power forward. Yager, a little bit more of a skilled player with a well-rounded two-way game. Not as physical at 6 foot, 175 or so, but really dependable. From one of the scouts I talked with, he's not an overly physical guy, but he's not shy. He's so smart. He thinks like Cole Perfetti, kind of in that kind of way. Checks with his feet and anticipation, but this is a guy that a lot of tucks us. I mean, 35 snipes, 95 points in 57 games last year, and then added another, I think, 27 points in 20 playoff games, helping the Warriors win the title. So he's got high-end skill, but he's not a one-trick pony, I guess. So I think this is a really smart addition by the Winnipeg Jets. And again, we've talked about this other factor a lot, Huss. Right shot centerman. The Jet outside of Brad Lambert and Mark Scheifele, Jets don't have a lot of right shot centermen in the organization. And yes, he could play on the wing if he has to as well. If they end up going that route, that's the position he played with the World Junior team basically last year. But I like the move on a number of levels. And as far as McGroarty goes, Huss, I mean, King of Kensington last summer, right? I mean, in last July, he was the toast of the town, and for whatever reason, and I don't, I'll be curious to see if any of those reasons get trickled out by either side. And I doubt the Jets are going to say anything. And I'm guessing Rutger also was just going to say that I wanted a direct path to the NHL. And even if he bothers to say that, I mean, but that's what we've uncovered over the last couple of months here. And the Penguins are a team that needs players on ELCs. They got a lot of high-priced, high-salaried players. So this is a good fit for Rutger as well.
For Pittsburgh too. I mean,
yeah.
Like, listen, you've Malkin's 38.
Yeah.
Sid, I think, is 37.
7. Yep.
So, I know they were super high on Brayden Yager. I mean, Dubas said as much. They signed him. I mean, he was a huge part of their future going forward. But I mean, if they're going to give another crack to these guys to, be a playoff team, like that extra year of having a guy ready to go in and play right now, I think makes a difference. Here's what Dubas had to say. This is a quote from the Penguins general manager. "We had a difficult decision to make with this trade because we hold Brayden Yager in such a high regard as a person and prospect. After much consideration, we decided that the opportunity to add Rutger McGroarty was ultimately in the best interest of the Penguins. He possesses the combination of ability, leadership, and competitiveness that the Penguins need to achieve our goals in the short and long run. We look forward to welcoming Rutger and his family to the city of Pittsburgh and the Penguins. We look forward to welcoming Rutger, his family, and the 25 family advisors to the city of, it is funny how this all went down. And, Ken, from my perspective, you mentioned about, Rutger, when he was here before, he made such an incredible impression on everyone. Yeah. Like, the Jets won't be doing a tribute video, but I think we're going to do our own tribute video of just the highlights of his interviews, like glossing Winnipeg. And listen, it might have all just been performative bullshit, or it may have been completely sincere. And then because of what is happening around him after a couple years in Michigan and many of his contemporaries and teammates going to teams where they were walking just right in the lineup. Yeah. Enough people got in his ear, the people that are making decisions for him, and sent things a different way. Like, he still does have all of that. He does project to be a guy that could be a captain one day. There is still question about his foot speed at the NHL level, which is not the case with Yager. But this doesn't diminish Rutger McGroarty as a prospect, but I think it also speaks to Kevin Cheveldayoff not willing to settle, as we've seen so many times before, for 4 quarters on the dollar or 90 cents for a dollar. He wanted a prospect of equal or better value in theirs, and then the intangibles can take care of themselves. But this is obvious. I'm sure this was talked about at the draft. We'd heard Pittsburgh being rumored and interested in McGroarty before. It was time to figure this out, whether this was going to happen this year and you were going to make it happen and he was going to sign, or they're taking it over from there. We're also hearing that Cheveldayoff's media availability is going to be at 3 o'clock. We'll try to bring that to you live here on the program as we continue and sort of finish up the show.
Yeah, Hassan, and we've been talking about this for a couple months. Like, one of the difficult factors in all of this is that it was going to be hard to, discern equal value, right? Because as you've mentioned before, and we've talked about, because Rutger is 2 years into the development path, the Jets don't really want to. They didn't want to just trade for the 14th overall pick or something of relative value.
Exactly.
Because Rutger's already been developed for 2 seasons. Even though he didn't play for the organization, he was developed for the organization and, in some ways by the organization in terms of development camps and things of that nature. And, all the countless visits with Jimmy Roy and Mike Keane and on the player development side. So Yager is an interesting study because, yes, he is younger, but he also projects to have a pretty high ceiling there. But, yeah, I mean, McGroarty, hey, this is simple, Huss. I mean, we've talked about it for a long time. I would have preferred McGroarty to just, again, if he didn't like the fact he wasn't guaranteed a spot, well, just go win the spot. It seems pretty simple. But, for him, he's going to a spot that makes sense for him. And for the Penguins, it makes sense because they're getting the type of player that is a big body. Like, they got a lot of skill in their lineup, but they don't have a lot of guys of his stature on an ELC contract. So it makes sense for them as well, for sure. Again, we've talked about the Penguins dating back to last deadline, Huss, right? When, you talked about it with Hammer, and we've talked about it as well. So it's not a surprise that there was interest in McGroarty. There was always interest, but as we've talked about, Kevin Cheveldayoff just wasn't going to, say, here, yeah, by the way, you can have our prospect for basically nothing. No, that's just not the way that he operates. So, but at the same time, he put on a brave face and he dug in his heels and said, hey, this has got to work for both sides. And I think he found a way that he made it work for the Jets, both in the short term and the long term, because we know the McGroarty had decided to go back. Now he's changed his mind. I think it's interesting, Huss. I mean, I don't know if it's buyer's remorse, but that sort of idea, right? You're sitting around and thinking, oh well, maybe Frank will come back, or Nazar, and then maybe the other guys will come back. But then they ended up signing, I guess. So all of a sudden, Rutger was looking around, and the seats at the table were all empty at Michigan. So now he's going to have a chance to go and sign his contract, get your bonus, play in the NHL, and now it's up to Rutger. Rutger was very open, knowing that his skating needs improvement, but before he's going to be an impact player. but he's also going to a spot where there's going to be opportunities available for him, much like there would have been for him in Winnipeg. So, this reminds me, it's not a parallel situation, but, much like we've gone back to 2011, there was always the Scheifele-Couturier comparison. Now we're going to be looking at the Yager and McGroarty situation. They're going to be tied together, sort of like Dubois and Laine in some ways, right? So it's interesting, but I think both players will probably go on and do well. But now it's up to them to show what they've got, and time will tell what this move was. But I mean, looking at all the information available that we have so far, based on some of the other names we had been hearing about Huss previously in terms of interest, I mean, getting a top 15 player is a pretty good return for Kevin Cheveldayoff, given the, as you mentioned. I mean, this is another classic example. I think I just wrote it in my column here. Classic turning a lemon into lemonade here, it seems like, right? So similar to last summer with the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. So again, no one is pretending that this is optimal for the Winnipeg Jets in having to move McGroarty, but if you had to move McGroarty, then they've done pretty well for themselves, and now it's up to the players to sort out the rest of it.
Yeah, listen, I mean, as far as the whole going back to Michigan thing, I think we can all see right now that wasn't his plan, and that was part of an orchestrated operation by him, the people around him, the family, whoever was all involved, to either force the Winnipeg Jets to trade him or to give them the assurances that he's walking right into the NHL. I will say this, Pittsburgh is a top-heavy team with a lot of openings elsewhere on the roster. Now, where he plays, I mean, that'll be up to Mike Sullivan to figure out. But there's certainly an easier path for him to get into the lineup. But, for these guys to speak so highly about Michigan and everything like that, he sure played them pretty good, because they're probably, a few weeks away from probably starting school right now.
Captain skates will be happening, yeah.
Yeah. He's probably saying, oh, actually, I got what I wanted, guys. Have a great season.
Peace.
Thank you.
And that's a big loss for Michigan. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a Hobey Baker candidate. So if you're the head coach of Michigan, you're probably not thrilled. Yes. And unless you were kept in the loop, Huss, you're probably not thrilled. That's for sure.
Hey, so Chevy's going to speak in 45 minutes, and again, we'll have it here on the program. We'll just continue the show, so stick around with us live on YouTube. What do you expect we'll hear from Chevy? Like, is this going to be a?
I'll stop you right there,
because this is an opportunity again to. I don't want to say stick his chest out or whatever, but say we want people who want to be here. We want people who want to. And the thing is, and he always said that he did, which is what will piss people off hearing about that. But he's sort of done it again. I mean, you talked about making the lemonade out of a lemon. He has not been forced into doing something that he didn't feel was in the best interest of his team in any of the deals. We've seen the way Kane turned out. We've seen the way Dubois turned out. I mean, there's plenty of examples of this. Do you think that this situation being a little different might have a little bit more open of a Kevin Cheveldayoff, or is this going to be taking care of the business, saying whatever they have to say? Good luck, kid. We got a guy that we're very excited to have, and move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked if there was a sort of a abrupt message on the way out the door. I would expect Kevin Cheveldayoff will take the high road. I think he'll thank him for his time, and he'll be focusing on Brayden Yager, would be how I envision this next press conference and conference call going. That's sort of just the way that they operate. And again, Huston, I think it's possible that, you can politely say we want guys that want to be here if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, but I don't expect him to hit the podium, hit the Zoom call over the head with that message. I mean, I think it is sort of assumed, and the Jets have worked really hard in terms of having people around that want to be Winnipeg Jets. But I think the focus for him is going to be on Brayden Yager and the player that's coming in. I mean, you were there in Vegas, and you were there on July 1st when he was asked about it again. I mean, he wasn't even willing to sort of go into what had happened, and it almost wasn't. I wouldn't say he certainly wasn't acting as though he was in denial, but he was providing no clues to any other general manager who may have been interested he was putting up no red flags and no smoke signals at all. He basically chose not to discuss it, which is his prerogative. And in the end, he just put on his poker face and made his calls and ended up getting a player that he wanted to get. So I'd be surprised if there was anything negative. And I know that's not necessarily what you were suggesting, but I don't think there will be much of a message to McGroarty other than all the best.
Hey, this room in a lot of ways has been dominated by American players for a long time. How significant is it, do you think, that they're getting a young guy, a first rounder, picked at the exact same number as Rutger McGroarty, but coming from a championship Western Hockey League team, and of course hailing from one province over?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to, we can't paint all players with a singular brush, no matter their nationality or whatever else. So the Jets have had pretty good luck with a lot of American players, as it turns out, whether it's the Minnesota pipeline or, a good chunk of the Michigan pipeline has turned out pretty well here too, Huss. But the difference being that, Kyle Connor was cut by the World Junior team, and Connor Hellebuyck never even had a chance to be drafted in the USHL. So, again, the whole, whether it's entitlement or whatever word you want to use, I think it's, that it's not, it's not just one nationality, but I just think that overall, I think Brayden Yager is a guy who wants to be in the NHL. He's from Saskatchewan. I mean, a lot of folks in Saskatchewan, we joke about the rivalry between the Bombers and the Riders all the time. And sorry, I shouldn't even say joke, but there's a lot of people in Rider land that are Jets fans. So I would imagine that Brayden Yager, the prospect, like, let's just put it this way: Rutger McGroarty didn't dream of playing for the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm not saying we got a John Tavares situation here. It's not, not like a Toronto-born kid wearing Toronto Maple Leafs pajamas, but I'm guessing that Brayden Yager watched quite a few Jets games as a young player and certainly would embrace the idea of battling for the second line center job, whether it's this year, the year after, or the year after that. So, the most important thing about Yager, high character kid. And again, this has nothing to do with McGroarty. McGroarty's been a captain of the teams all the way up. So, whatever will be with Rutger. And again, in your dealings, my dealings, he seemed like a very genuine human being. So, I'd be curious to how he's going to handle his press situation, Huss, whether there's a conference call there. I'll be tuning in for that for sure. But again, I just don't think we're going to get all the answers from either side. But what we do know is there was a breakdown over where the organization, where the player and his advisors saw where the player was at in terms of his NHL readiness. And, we're going to find out if he's ready. It's not going to take long. Let's just put it that way.
You know what else isn't going to take long? For Winnipeg Jets fans to have the opportunity to let Rutger.
Oh, right. PLD treatment, or what do you think?
October 20th. Oh, I think he's going to get all of that, of that and more. To be honest, the PLD treatment at the game last year was very underwhelming. I think part of that was just that crowd that night wasn't very good. It was the third game of the season. That's usually the softest part attendance-wise for any team. And that game just didn't have the oomph that it would have.
Well, then Velarde getting hurt so early, right? It sort of sapped the energy right out of the building.
On every level. And, it was unfortunate. But I have zero doubt that game is going to be, it's going to be up there with the Kane return. Now, unfortunately, the Kane return was an absolute dud, if you remember. That was a Sunday afternoon game.
Well, and he set up Sam Reinhart for the hat trick, right? I mean, he had the empty netter, and didn't he dish it over?
I mean, listen, the organization, I don't know whether they love a do-over on that, but I mean, remember everyone was wearing tracksuits. They were taking signs away. I mean, it was absurd how over the top they were, trying to not get fans to be able to express their whatever for Evander. That wasn't the case with the PLD thing, and it was go nuts, boo the hell out of the guy, and it wasn't there. But with all of the talk about Rutger and just everything that he said to fans that got them to buy in the way they did, right. I honestly think that this will be at Kane levels when we get to October 20th. I really do. Let us know in the chat, folks. Those of you that attend games, let us know if you're going to be ready for that one on October 20th and what your plans are on that. But, I mean, we're going to have a full-fledged circus in the first couple of weeks of the regular season.
And you're not talking about the Laurent Brossoit return for the home opener. I'm guessing that's going to be a little bit more.
That'll be a love-in.
Yeah, I think there'll be a big love in there. I don't think we'll be hearing any backup talk on that night in the chanting room. But I mean, it's good for. I mean, it's good for entertainment value, I think, Huss. But anyways,
what's intriguing about that, Ken, is that as I pull this up, the opening game of the season is in Edmonton. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's just the 5th game of the season.
Right.
It is not out of the realm of possibility at all that Yager could still be with the team, potentially getting a 9-game look to see if he can stick around. And I'll tell you what, if Yager's in that game and Rutger McGroarty's in that game, that is going to take, I mean, it's already going to be a circus, as I mentioned, but holy smokes. I mean, for a guy like Yager, I mean, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You got to get through training camp and see if he does enough to still be around it in the mix.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about an opportunity to endear yourself to a team, a fan base, your coaches. You go and have a big game against the guy that you were just traded for, against the team that just let you go. It will give you guys a lot to write about in the Freep, I'll tell you that much.
Well, the Yager bombs and Yager, what's the over/under on the Cool Bet lines for Yager bombs and Jagermeister headlines this in the next 3 years, Huss? I'd like to get an early line on the over/under.
The line is like, well, hopefully, I mean, if we're talking with the next few years with him being here. Well, the thing is about the Yager bombs, interesting because one of the things that he comes with is
Crazy
an absolutely lethal shot.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A pure sniper. So, yeah, I mean, let's also not forget, Huss. I mean, if you're a hockey fan, Sidney Crosby is 37 years old. You should be sprinting to the box office for the opportunity to be watching Sid. I don't think it's going to be one last time, but Huss, for those of us who grew up watching the Penguins and knew how limited the Mario Lemieux visits were, and I was at most of the games that he actually made it to, this is a treat to see the Penguins whenever you can. Now, adding a little bit of WWE drama, that should only help matters for what should be a fun matchup. And hey, there's been tons of fun games between the Jets and Penguins over the years, even dating back to when they were in the Eastern Conference. But
first ever win.
Right, there you go. All kinds of fun. So it should be very entertaining. It's been an entertaining week in the National Hockey League. Some Jet connections. I know during the week you've been talking about Laine going to Montreal, and I'm sure you've had some offer sheet talk, which certainly impacts the Central Division that the Jets reside in terms of the Blues adding Holloway and Broberg, basically for almost, certainly nothing in terms of current assets and equity. But what a fun week overall, and just guess what? Less than 1 month, training camp will be happening. Good news all around.
You know it. Dylan Sandberg.
How's he faring so far?
Well, he hasn't teed off yet. He's in one of the last groups.
Oh, yeah, with the delay.
He and Braxton Kuntz are going out. It looks like they're scheduled to tee off at 4:10 now.
Okay.
I guess there was a delay a little earlier.
Yeah, 2-hour delay, I think Mike was saying when we talked earlier today. But Mike had a great piece for those who haven't seen it on Andrew Kopp's brother Tyler, who is in the field this week and has been on PGA Tour Americas this year. So
he's actually
should be a fun week at
Tyler
Southwood
Kopp,
here.
If you're heading out to Southwood this afternoon, wanting to check out Dylan Sandberg and Braxton Kuntz, Tyler Kopp's actually teeing off 10 minutes before those guys.
Perfect.
So, for fans that are kind of looking for that hockey connection, you get out to a hole, you'll be able to see Tyler Kopp go through, then Braxton Kuntz, and then Dylan Sandberg playing in the final group with Bo Brodt and Tyler Eisenhart from it. Hey, quickly, how's the tourney going on? I always love checking in with you during the Tamarack. I know how you're wired. This is one of the highlights of the year.
It has been entertaining. I needed a putting intervention with Marshall Paterson and company after my qualifying rounds, but I did manage to get things back on track in the first game of match play, 6-5, and yesterday it was a pretty big duel, Huss. I was down 2 after 7. We were even after 9. I was up 2 after 15, lost 16 and 18. and I had the drama of needing a par on the first playoff hole to advance to the semis in a flight that's a little bit higher than I had hoped, but still staying alive here, Huss, which is always the fun part, and a ton of ton
you
of
blew the
fun here.
2-hole lead and then managed to steady yourself and win an extra hole. I know you have lots of clubs in your bag. I didn't know you had that one.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, Huss, we've talked about this too. Math, not my strong suit, as you know. I'm on 17. I hit to the fringe. My first putt for birdie is to about 3 feet. And in my head, I'm thinking that I'm still up by 2, but I had just gave up rewind, 16th hole. I blast a drive that I think is perfect. It's pin high, but it takes a bad bounce into the trees. My opponent, Ryan Rubini, snap hook, looks like it's going into the trees, spits it out to the middle of the fairway. He hits it onto the green from there, no problem. My ball is wedged between 2 sticks. Like if I move the one, the ball moves and it's a penalty. So I blow the 16th hole. On 17, I have like a 3-footer tap in for par. In my head, I'm like, oh, I'm up by 2. If I just lag it and make the bogey, match is over. No, that hole is halved and we go to 18.
You don't need to lag a 3-footer for crying out loud. Like what?
I know.
What goes on between your ears, man?
It's crazy. So anyways, 18, I blast my tee shot into the wrong fairway. I'm under the tree. Struggle bus is there. Even on 18, I had a 3-footer to win the match. And I missed the hole entirely. So, but it was unlucky for Ryan. He teed off first on the first playoff hole, hit it into the trees, and his chip out hit a branch, and somehow Huss in that walk between the 18th tee and the first tee, I reset. I drove the ball within 20 yards of the green, chipped on, and 2-putted for the match. But it was let's just say Ryan is a great battler, but it was a little bit more. I made life a little more difficult on myself than I needed to. But that's the beauty of match play, and that's why it's such a fun event. They just do a great job here, and a couple of my young nephews that are down from Saskatoon, they played in the Cubs tournament. They've got the thing for the 12 and under event over at Poplar Ridge, and it's just such a great fun family event. And get down here for 9 or 10 days, and it's just a load of fun. And I got to say, Huss, the guy in our group, Chris Canoop, was 3rd place in the championship flight, so. He saw a lot of more swings than I cared to take in my rounds, but we helped him stay in the top 3, and I think they're still going here today. So a couple more days out here and home on Sunday, and we got our Jets monthly mailbag, which now with the Rutger News, I'm sure folks can get your questions in here to fire that up. But busy week ahead, Huss. We'll get one more visit in, I think, next Wednesday, and then off to Italy for vacation, and then we'll be back for training camp. So it's a fun month here. Yeah, buddy. Next Thursday.
For how long?
18 days.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss 2 hits, but I'm hoping maybe Rennie will be kind enough to fill in. Maybe.
Oh yes.
We're gonna go for the pinch hitter there, Huss. I hope you don't replace me. Don't let him Wally Pipp me, man.
We can get the brains of the operation.
Exactly.
On the show. That'll be.
And then for those listening
nice.
too, Huss, while I have you. Kenny and Rennie pop up on Monday. We were hoping to get one today. It's just a little bit too complicated with me being up here. But Monday we'll have a show coming out of your show on Monday. Sort of a summer wrap, and obviously with the Rutger News, we'll dig in pretty heavily there. And we got Jason Bukala coming on also to dig in with that. So should be a fun show on Monday. Thanks for having me.
It's about time you guys got back to work.
We'll try to do a little better job on the greens tomorrow in the afternoon in the semifinals.
Well, I will say you can't do a better job on the location, the background. This is like this. You've often come with some great one. Still, the best one was walking for 45 minutes to get your haircut in Orlando. That's my personal favorite. But this one is beautiful. Like, congratulations on the win. Good luck tomorrow. We'll be following. Give me an update tomorrow. The WST
I'll be texting
Nation
you. Don't
is going to
worry.
be. What time do you tee off?
2 o'clock tee off. So we'll save it for Monday. But and again,
if you get a hole in one, text
you'll
me.
Hear
text
it. You'll
me,
hear it, buddy. You'll hear it. And also, for those who didn't wish him greetings and a happy 50th during the week, your next guest, milestone birthday, I believe, this this past week for Mr. DT. So
Yeah, he went to Princess Auto for 8 hours. That's,
there you go. Good place to spend it. So happy birthday again to DT, and enjoy the football game here this weekend, fellas. Should be a fun one.
Cannot wait. All right, Wiebe, thanks a lot for doing that. And good luck tomorrow again. Ken Wiebe of the Free Press, live from the Tamarack as he continues on. We are not talking about this trade, though. Coming up at the top of the hour, Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to speak. So we'll go long today. We'll have Chevy for you live. Don't go anywhere. But again, I mean, a big portion of the show today, we were getting ready for this big game tomorrow, and we're lucky enough to have DT from the play-by-play voice of the Bombers joining us in just a moment. Just before we bring in DT, we got another beautiful weekend coming up. We'll give a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug, home of the iconic 1919 and all their incredible brews. If you haven't been down and check out the patio, I know many WSTers have because we've had a couple events there that have been just phenomenal. But that patio right there tucked in the Exchange District is the best place to go. You got a chance to, taste a bunch of small batch beers that they put together and all of your favorites for Little Brown Jug. But you can grab 1919s and generics, of course, at the ballpark, at Canada Life Center. But no better place to do it than at Little Brown Jug on William Avenue in the Exchange District. And all your Little Brown Jug favorites are available at beer vendors and Manitoba liquor marts throughout the city. Another great place to grab a Little Brown Jug, of course, is the beer can. And I'm just going to give you a heads up. Next weekend, Labor Day long weekend, there is a boxing event happening supporting the Pan Am Boxing Center. We're going to have Harry Black on the program early next week to talk about it. But if you are staying in the city next week, stay tuned to WST for more information on what's going to be a great boxing card. I can't imagine a better place to have an outdoor boxing card in the city than the beer can. Of course, if you haven't been there, it's Winnipeg's biggest, most beautiful outdoor beer garden and restaurant. All the delicious food cooking up by the Cosmos boys, the best selection of local beers, frozen drinks as well. And of course, if you want those great eats, pop by the next door on Sherbrooke for Wingy Wednesday last night. And of course, the biggest, best sandwiches in town. Bomber O-line approved are over at Hoagie Boys on South Osborne. Shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. I know we're all fired up for this Bomber game and NFL season starting, but hockey is right around the corner. They've got all your Jets gear, latest NFL gear, Bomber gear for you. But everyone's getting ready to get back on the ice, and you will take care of everything for the upcoming season with one trip to Royal Sports, the hockey superstore in town for over 40 years. Everything when it comes to equipment, supplies, the biggest stick selection in town, and of course, goalie equipment. It's all there. Get ready to drop the puck at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, you can hit them up on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg. Follow them there for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, CFL is back tonight. We got a great one between the Argos and the Riders. Chad Kelly's return. I think I am going to be popping down to my local Boston Pizza to watch it on the big screen, grab a few ice cold schooners, some world famous BP wings, and jump on that great deal right now with all their medium specialty pizzas, just $19.64, celebrating their anniversary. So if you're going out to watch the game at any point this weekend, make it your local Boston Pizza. And if you're staying at home, you can order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, we will get back to the trade. Cheveldayoff speaking at the top of the hour. We got a big football game to talk about tomorrow. And yes, the birthday boy himself coming out of his 8-hour time in Princess Auto, his favorite spot outside of Princess Auto Stadium. Derek Taylor, play-by-play voice on CJOB, joins us now. A belated happy birthday. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I got a paintbrush when I was at Princess Auto. I was eyeballing some other stuff. Oh, I need some more sanding discs. That's my stop when I need to buy anything for my house. I love it.
Well, we always say it. They say it's the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto, and I'm sure you did a little bit of both. We'll have 6 other days of the week to get to the Princess Auto stores, but Princess Auto Stadium is going to be the place to be tomorrow. Just before we get to tomorrow's game, I mean, you're with the team, you're at every game, you're calling every single play. How do we describe what's happened to the Bomber defense over the last month, and in particular, these two master classes they put forth against the BC Lions, who came in with Vernon Adams as the number one offense in the league?
Yeah, they were the highest scoring team in the league, and they essentially, apart from that 2 seconds left, they scored 3 points in 159 minutes and 57 seconds. Like, it was an incredible performance. And as I looked back at it, I just thought, oh man, this is unbelievable. They've improved so much on last year. And I look at last year's numbers and go, actually, they were actually a little better last year. They're just doing it differently this year, right? They don't have that same force up front that they had last year. Jackson Jeffcoat has moved on, and it's just not the same force up front, and not the same commitment to the pass rush that there has been in previous years. Jordan Younger very clearly focuses on coverage, right? So now you have 3-man rushes with 1 linebacker and 8 defensive backs, or 4 and 1 and 7 defensive backs, right? He goes to that 7 defensive back package pretty quick with Michael Griffin, the guy they call the nickel defensive back in there. And honestly, that's just causing a ton of problems for opposing teams. I was making the joke to a couple guys. I interviewed Terrell Bonds, their starting boundary corner. And Huss, you're at normal interview distance for a guy passing the mic back and forth. I said, Terrell, we're at normal interview distance. It seems like you didn't allow guys this much distance in 2 games. What's the deal with that? Like, every time there was a receiver anywhere, there was a defensive back all over top of him, if not jumping the route over top of him to take the ball away. It's been an incredible couple of games. And for an offense that's chock full of stud receivers, and in this case, it was VA and then it was Rourke, 2 quarterbacks who can distribute the ball, that performance becomes even more impressive.
Well, I mean, it's hard to even single guys out. I mean, Ford, as you mentioned, I was on in Edmonton today, and Matt Awanek is like he's been a Trey Ford truther for 2 years. And he would be the president of the Trey Ford fan club. And I said, I guess we'll have to wait 1 more week to see the second best Ford in the CFL. But because, I mean, listen, and I know you're down with the numbers, the PFF rankings. I mean, week over week, he's been the top corner in the league. He's the top rated corner for the year. And to have a second-year player break out the way that he has, I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, it's an absolutely huge part. Everyone else is doing their job, but the confidence that he has right now, with the picks that he's coming, with the coverage, he perfectly fitting in this Jordan Younger scheme that has been giving offensive coordinators nightmares for the better part of the last month.
Yeah, and think of it from this perspective. Dietrich Nichols has 2 interceptions this year. Why would you ever throw at Dietrich Nichols? Well, you don't feel like you should necessarily be trying to pick on Tyrell Ford and Evan Holm. You mentioned Ford busting out in his second year. Evan Holm, that was him last year, right? Busting out in his second year. You go, I don't know where you're supposed to go with this football. They do different things with Retta Cramdy than Richie Hall did, which maybe covers up some of Retta's weaknesses. And it's incredible. Terrell Bonds and Dietrich Nichols, 2 guys who knew each other back in their school days, work so well together on that boundary side. And both the corners, both Ford you mentioned and Terrell Bonds, they'll talk about the great help they get from their halfbacks and communication. And Ford's talked about, well, Holm will tell me it's this, and boom, and there you go. And that's why I got that interception the first time against Calgary, for example. And Terrell Bonds has no end of praise for Dietrich Nichols. So, yeah, to see those 6, 7, 8 guys all working well together, communicating effectively. And, I mean, how many interceptions should there have been last week? Like 4, if not a 5th one. Bonds is maybe half a step behind one. This is good for a team that its offense is not producing, and its defense to I guess up to last week's game hadn't forced a ton of turnovers. If they start forcing some turnovers, and goodness gracious, if the offense ever starts contributing to this, the Bombers could be a real problem in the West.
Well, they're right back in it. They're certainly back. And, despite, listen, the 2 losses heading into the BC series were concerning. The Toronto one, I liken the Bombers the way they lost to Toronto, to the Riders lost to Montreal last week in a game that they completely outplayed the other team. And due to some mistakes, and in this case, it was the kicking game, they didn't get the win. But, the West is up for the taking for anybody right now, including Edmonton, who's just 2 wins back of Saskatchewan and BC. But for the Bombers, the defense is playing so well. And listen, in these last couple of games against BC, I totally get it. They didn't need to push things. They let the defense control the game. They controlled time of possession. They moved the chains, and they didn't force it in the red zone. If they had to kick a field goal, they were fine with that because all the points count. Moving down through the rest of the season, this offense is going to need to hit another level or two. And I would suggest to you, DT, that tomorrow night at Princess Auto Stadium is a perfect opportunity to do exactly that before firing it up to get to Regina and trying to get a better result than they had the last time this season they went to the Riders, putting up only 9 on the board. What are you expecting from the Bomber offense tomorrow night against the Tabbies?
Yeah, there's a real opportunity, right? I don't know if we have any great guess of what this defense will look like now that it's Chris Jones and not Mark Washington. It'll be Chris Jones' first game. But if you don't put up a fairly big number on offense, I'm really going to start to be worried, right? The offense has the fewest touchdowns in the Canadian Football League. They score the fewest points per game in the Canadian Football League. And while that hasn't really hurt them a ton, I mean, like you say, 4-6, and they're 3 points out of first, it's going to be a problem going forward, right? Because the defense can't pitch shutouts every game, right? They're not getting point contributions on offense or on special teams. And what was so great about them the last 4 years was they could win a game with the offense. They could win a game with the defense. They could win a game with Janarian Grant and the special teams and field goals and that stuff. We really don't see that so far this year. If the defense isn't playing lights out, I don't know what happens to this team. So they really do need to put some up. And Hamilton, in my mind, is very clearly the worst team in the CFL right now. If you can't get something against this. Oh, by the way, Hamilton's offense can score. So to a certain degree, you're going to have to outscore them. Not the same as I'd be concerned against a better opponent, but Hamilton's offense can score if they stop dropping footballs. So Bo likes to rip the ball down the field, regardless of what you think of Bo in a season and who's at fault. And Hamilton, Bo can rip the ball down the field. They're going to need to score. And if they don't, if they win 19-14, I don't know what the postgame show is going to be like, because Saskatchewan, like you said, allowed them 9 points last time. And Sask defense looks like it is for real. So, and oh, by the way, they have Trevor Harris back. So those are going to be 2 games where you need the offense to be clicking.
Yeah, and, get her set, get some momentum coming out of Friday night, and get to Regina. One interesting side to all of this, and we spent a lot of time this week just talking about this incredible run of Mike O'Shea as the head coach, along with Kyle Walters and Wade Miller, and what they've done off the field, what they've done on the field. But Mike O'Shea's at 100 wins. You take care of business tomorrow and Mike O'Shea gets to 101 wins. And then the back-to-back games against the Riders. There is a scenario, a very juicy scenario, where the Bombers can win in Regina, get him to 102, tying the legendary Bud Grant, and come back in the Banjo Bowl against your biggest rival with the opportunity to win and become the winningest head coach in Blue Bomber history. Sign me up for that, DT.
And clinch the season series against Saskatchewan, so you would have the season series against every team. They haven't played Edmonton yet, but how big a deal would that be? Like in that instance, Huss, the Bombers would be 7-6. They would have the tiebreaker over everybody, and then 3-way and 4-way tiebreakers. They would own those too. It's a pretty great spot to be in. And then we all get to ask Mike O'Shea the uncomfortable question of, hey, the winningest coach in Bomber history. And he'd go, no, don't ask. Don't, I don't think about that. So it would be pretty cool. Me, I'm a big numbers guy. So something like that would be pretty amazing. Man, I don't want to look past this Hamilton game because stuff can happen and weird things happen in games against Hamilton the last couple of years. But those Saskatchewan games are so enormous right now. The Banjo Bowl warm-up and then the Banjo Bowl. I can't wait for those because the Bombers are getting back to as close to full strength as they might get this season. And Sask is, at full strength on its offense. Ooh, it's going to be good.
Well, and listen, getting Kenny Lawler back in the lineup last week, I mean, like the biggest beneficiary of Kenny Lawler seemed to be Nick Dembski. I mean, a little bit more room to run, and when Dembski can go there, he had some moments earlier on this year with ball control and security. That seems to have righted the ship, as we expected it would. But the offense looks completely different for Zach Collaros when Kenny Lawler is in there, knowing that Dalton Schoen's out for the season. And if they can build on that this week and get feeling real good heading into Regina, I think that puts them into a great, great spot. Hey, just before we go, thoughts on tonight's game? Return of Chad Kelly for the Argos. He hasn't been practicing with the team all year. So, I mean, might this be sort of like Nathan Rourke? I mean, I know he was with the team last year, but still, I mean, it's been a long time since he's played a game with these guys. Short week of practice. And I expect the Riders, considering how well they played last week despite the loss, are going to come in with a real chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I would too. And it'll be interesting to see what Kelly can do in week number 1. And it'll be interesting to see the reaction to Kelly being back. I mean, that Argos offense, it'll look dramatically different than with Cameron Dukes or Nick Arbuckle, because neither guy's just been able to be consistent. They both bring something, but Kelly just brings more. I don't know, man. The whole Chad Kelly thing, like, there's a certain contingent they're trying to downplay what happened. There's a certain contingent that would like them dragged into the street and shot. And you go, okay, well, I'm just going to not say much because I don't want to anger either side. But it'll be interesting to see the different broadcasts, the 3 different broadcasts, and their reaction to Chad Kelly and what's happened and what's to come. I suspect there'll be some, we just want to focus on what's on the field. But it's not going to be it's not going to be necessarily a warm welcome from everybody for Chad Kelly back.
Yeah, well, listen, the guy's been a knucklehead his whole life, and this was a serious violation of, a CFL policy on, what do they call it, gender-based violence.
Yeah.
I don't believe he's accused of physically assaulting this woman or anything like that, but I mean,
just repeatedly asking her out, right? And
being a loser and a jerk, basically. Like, so whatever. I mean, he's done. Listen, they put forth a bunch of things that he had to do, including miss out 6 games, which is a very significant suspension in professional football. And he's got a chance to come back and show that he's not the idiot that a lot of people think he is. And I'll say this, he better play well, because I mean, at this point, you've done enough damage to the brand of the Argos, to the Canadian Football League, that, if he doesn't get the job done, if he looks like the guy in the East Final, he won't be around very long, despite the fact of their financial commitments to him right now. So I think there is a lot of pressure on him right out the gate. But he's going up against a very good Rider defense tonight, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this week gets started in the CFL. But I'm most excited to get to Princess Auto Stadium tomorrow with 31,000 plus in the stands to see if the Bombers can keep it rolling. One final question. How many hot dogs will you be crushing at the Princess Auto tailgate tomorrow when they bring you the rack of 10 or a dozen or whatever you order every week?
Yeah, so it's been 10. And it didn't coincide. It caused the winning streak to start. The home wins started when Doug Brown and I got our hot dogs back. So Patty is nice enough to bring us 10. And the guys are a little lax. They're falling down. Doug will hammer a couple. Ed Tate will hammer one because Ed's taking care of himself. So it's left to me, right, to pick up the rest. So if I actually do remember to bring my fancy ketchup, mustard, relish picnic pack from Heinz, I think 5. I think 5 will be the number. So five dogs for DT, 5 touchdowns for the Bombers offense, and glorious victory for win number 5.
Don't put any ketchup on those dogs. What are you, 10? Come on, DT.
Don't make me come through the screen to get you. Ketchup goes on hot dogs. Pineapple goes on pizza.
If you're a child. Listen, have a great call tomorrow. Looking forward to the game, and we'll look forward to seeing you out in Regina as well next week for what should be an awesome weekend for Bomber fans, just for CFL fans. There's nothing better than Labor Day weekend in Regina and the follow-up game here in Winnipeg. And with these teams so close right now, I think the anticipation for this game will be as big as any we've seen in the better part of the last 10 years or so. Again, belated happy birthday, pal. Have a great one tomorrow. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, brother.
All right. I knew the ketchup take would get people going on in the chat. But yes, pop by and see Derek, Doug Brown. They're doing the pregame show in the Princess Auto tailgate. Grab a few hot dogs and then hang out with the fellas tomorrow before the game. Thanks to DT for jumping on with us. I mentioned this right off the bat. Gold Eyes are on the road. They had sort of hit the skids. They'd gotten swept on the weekend in a very important series. They lost the opener against Fargo. And then, as has happened all year long, Joey Matalovich rolls onto the bump and takes care of business. Last night, I believe 9 strikeouts, 7 shutout innings, and they even up the series at 1 with the opportunity to win the series right now. Yeah, what was it? 7 innings, 6 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts, and the Gold Eyes win 4-0. And our old buddy Steve Schuster tweeted out last night, with his 8th strikeout of the night, Joey Matalovich moved into sole possession of 3rd place on the Gold Eye single season list with 134, most by a Gold Eye since Bobby Madrich's club record 153 in 2002. He, of course, went on to the major leagues. And Jeff Zimmerman, second with 140 in 97, historic company. Both Zimmerman and Bobby Madrich both advanced from the Gold Eyes to the major leagues. What a season for Joey Matalovich. Gold Eyes are back next week for 6 huge games right through the Labor Day weekend, looking to stay on top in the division and host some playoff baseball in the first week of September at Shaw Park. Get out to the ballpark next week. They had huge crowds last weekend. What a great season for Logan Watkins' squad. Get your tickets at goldeyes.com for next week when the team is back. I know Aikens Lake is going to be rocking this week. Some special guests coming out. And listen, it's always fun at Aikens, but especially when you've taken care of business and get off the grid for a couple days with world-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality at Aikens Lake. If you are looking maybe to squeeze in one more amazing fishing trip before the end of the season, might be able to do that. You can get in touch with them at aikenslake.com, but they're booking well into 2025 right now. So you want to plan that dream fishing trip, get in touch with Pitt and the gang over at aikenslake.com and get planning for 2025. And, of course, you can follow them on all their social channels at Aikens Lake. No live racing tonight at Assiniboia Downs, but they're back at it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this weekend through the holiday weekend and into September with a few dates of live racing added at the end of the season. So make a plan to get out to AS Downs as well if you haven't so far. Free admission, free parking, great food, and of course, if you want to really do it up, make a booking in the clubhouse dining room and take advantage of that amazing prime rib, all-you-can-eat buffet on race nights over at Assiniboia Downs. Breezy Bend golf update for you. First off, let's get to the Manitoba Open. We're waiting until the end of the day for 4-time defending Manitoba amateur champ from Breezy Bend, Braxton Kuntz, to tee off, as well as Winnipeg Jets defenseman Dylan Sandberg. They had a little delay earlier this morning. Right now, though, American John Keeler has the lead. He's 7 under par through 15 today. A big group of 5 are at 6 under, including Canadian Noah Steele and Canadian Max Sekulik. Other Canadians, a big group at 5 under par, including Canadian Thomas Giroux. Matt Anderson is 4 under par right now. Brady McKinley. So plenty of Canadian flags up on the leaderboard right now as things get going. We had a great chat with Rob Guthrie from Southwood earlier this week on the tourney. Tomorrow is the Family Fun Day. Family Fun Day is on the weekend. But tomorrow, if you wear your bomber gear, you can get in, I believe, for free tomorrow and, hang out at Southwood for the afternoon and then head over for the game as well. So Dylan Sandberg and Kuntz will be playing, I believe, in the morning tomorrow, but today, 4:10 p.m., so still time to get out to the course and check out what's going on over at the Manitoba Open at Southwood Golf and Country Club. Meanwhile, on the PGA Tour, they're going at it in the BMW Championship. Top 30 will advance to the Tour Championship. And how about this? Keegan Bradley, who was 50th of 50, is in first place right now, 6 under par. He's going to need probably to win the tournament to advance to the Tour Championship. Look at my guy, Tony Finau, who we're on this week. Great start for him. He's 4 under through 9. The Canadians, Corey Connors is 3 under, tied for 6th right now with 2 holes to go. Taylor Pendrith shot even par. Pendy, the top Canadian, he was 27th. He needs to stay in that top 30. Adam Hadwin, though, a very tough 4 over par through 17. That pretty much, unless he has a monster next 3 rounds, probably means that his regular season is going to end in the BMW Championship. Shout out to Breezy Ben. Thanks again for having me along with Kevin Cheveldayoff at their big member guest event last Sunday. Can't wait to play Breezy coming up on Saturday. Hopefully in a great mood after a big Blue Bomber win. All right, I'm going to get to the cool bet lines right now. But Remis, you keep an eye on Jets HQ and let me know if we need to cut out and get to Kevin Cheveldayoff, because the Jets general manager is going to be speaking, scheduled in the next 5 minutes or so. So as soon as Chevy's speaking, we will get to it live. But right now, let's get over to the cool bet lines. And it's been interesting watching the line movement in the Saskatchewan-Toronto game. It opened at around 2. It was at 2.5 yesterday, and I kind of thought it might get closer to Saskatchewan. But apparently people are pretty excited, some bettors, to see Chad Kelly. It got up to 3 last night, and I actually got Saskatchewan +3. I like Saskatchewan to win this game. The money line is at +118. That was as high as +135 last night. But as it stands right now, the Riders are 2-point underdogs and +118 on the money line. Argos -2 and -143. Oh, wow, we've seen a big move in the Bomber game. The Bombers were 9.5-point favorites. It's now gone to 10.5. Not a lot of faith in what the Ticats have going on right now. A huge money line went from -500 to -556. And the Ticats are 4-1 on the road and 10.5-point underdogs in the game tomorrow night, 7:30 at Princess Auto Stadium. BC, just a slight 1-point favorite in Ottawa, despite losing 4 straight. And the Red Blacks being 6-2-1. Ottawa even money to extend the BC losing streak to 5. Nathan Rourke starts for BC, -129 on the money line. And the Elks are now up to 7-point underdogs against the Montreal Alouettes. That was 6 just an hour ago or so when we were doing the lock shop. So you can get Edmonton +7 and the Elks +285 on the money line. Alouettes -370. Interesting, just touching on the CFL futures for a minute. The Bombers opened this week at 7-1. We talked on Monday how it went from 7-1 to +650 to +600 just over the course of the day. It was +575 the next day. The Bombers are now down to 5-1 to win the Grey Cup. Now, Montreal is the favorite at 2-1. BC right behind them, despite their recent struggles, at +215, really banking on Nathan Rourke to turn it around. But then there's the Bombers at 5-1, Saskatchewan at 6-1, Toronto 7, Ottawa 8, and then Calgary 20-1, Edmonton 45-1, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who will be here tomorrow at 100-1. We do have a partner parlay for the lock shop. I'm not sure whether it is up yet. Yeah, here we are. We've got it. So Elks +6.5, the BC Lions to win, and the Bombers to cover 9.5. That is +543. It is boosted to +620. I'm actually going to bet that live right while we're in the middle of this program right now to make sure we've got it in. Dusty and I are both on those 3 games. I do love Saskatchewan tonight as well, and I've actually done a 4-gamer. And if you haven't played a cool bet before, or you have, but you just haven't bet the CFL this week, don't forget, every week you get 1 CFL bet to add a 20% win boost.
Recording in progress.
The Bombers future earlier today, but We'll get it all there. So I like Saskatchewan tonight, but the
Good
lock shot
afternoon,
parlay
everybody. Welcome to
boosted
the
up to plus
media
620.
availability for Winnipeg.
Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 over at CoolBet for your first deposit. All right, it sounds like Kevin Cheveldayoff is getting ready to go over at Jets HQ. Let's send it over to the Winnipeg Jets and the general manager for comments on today's big trade, Brayden Yager, now a member of the Winnipeg Jets for Rutger McGroarty.
Afternoon, Kevin, and thanks, Gregor. Kevin, let's start with what you've added here. Would it be safe to say Brayden is a player that you would have done a lot of scouting at in his draft year? You guys ended up taking Colby Barlow a few picks later, but is this a player that you had your eye on and you had a lot of viewings of? And
well, certainly, yeah.
To the organization?
Thanks, Mike. Again, obviously, we're very excited to add Brayden to the organization. I think he's a very, very talented player in a very skilled position. At center, where he can certainly make other players better around him, and that's kind of what we've watched and viewed, throughout his draft year, and obviously in subsequent scouting situations after that. Obviously, you never know what obviously comes up, and just because you don't end up drafting a player, you don't stop keeping tabs on him. So fortunately for us, we were able to come to agreement, with Pittsburgh here, and we're really excited. I had a chance to chat with Brayden here this morning. Or I guess it was early afternoon when I talked to him, and he's real excited and look forward to seeing him in Penticton and our first chance to see him in a Jets uniform.
And then just as a follow up on what's going the other way, I know you've been asked obviously earlier this summer about what went wrong with Rutger McGroarty and that situation. Now that I guess a little more dust has settled on this, what can you tell us about why the need to move him became something that had to happen?
Sure, I'll take you through, I guess the timing of things. As we found out, we were at the draft combines and got a text from his agent that wanted to meet. So we sat down and chatted, and he informed us that Rutger had said that he didn't intend to sign. So that's the first, inkling that we got that, there was nothing that was going to come to fruition there. And when we sat down and asked the agent why, he said he didn't have an answer. He didn't have a reason. I went through a litany of questions, to the agent to see, was it player development? Was it, that we didn't burn a year? He says, no. And he just said he just didn't feel right. Said it kind of started in development camp where he just didn't feel right. And I said, well, I guess I'd just like to, have an answer. But anyway, I met with Rutger face to face several days later, and that was the same response as well. So he said that when he got to development camp here, he put the jersey on, it became real, and it just didn't feel right at that time, and culminated with with that. So again, if there's a specific reason, Rutger hasn't told us.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
Sorry, just getting the mic unmuted there. Yeah, I guess, you lay things out really clearly there, what have you, but that's the big mystery, I think, in this situation, and certainly Rutger can speak for himself. You mentioned player development, and I'm wondering to what extent, relationships there ever seemed concerning, or if he wasn't taking feedback the way you wanted, or anything at all that in hindsight maybe makes that angle look a little clearer.
No. And, again, I met with Rutger several times, in the regionals, flew and saw him, talked to him, met with his family, had a conversation with the agent around the end of the year about signing. We were going to have a Zoom call with, his family. about the different options and processes, and that they determined that they didn't need that he was going back to school, and we said, okay, well, we fully support you. So, but again, that's a situation that I think, if I look at what we've got in return here, I think it's a player that fits, very well into our organization. I think that if you look at the prospects that we have coming, you've got a player like Barlow that plays wing, that was going to be complemented, exceptionally well by a player like Yager, at center. So I think it gives us a lot more depth amongst the organization. Brayden's a key part of a young team, or a team that went far in the playoffs last year. Obviously, World Junior experience. So we're just excited to have him as in our fold here, and looking forward to seeing him in a couple of weeks.
And just on the note of Brayden as well, before I forget, as I understand it, he's CHL or NHL. Do you have access to any type of exemption there based on, I think he played 24 games once upon a time in a fourth WHL year?
Yeah, no, it's pretty, spelled out there when those players have exceptions, and he's a player that would have to play in the National League or, back in the CHL.
Thank you.
Go next to Scott Billick. Go ahead, Scott.
I remember these days of Zoom.
We're not hearing anything coming through, Scott. Ready? Anybody else want to step up in Scott's absence?
I go on.
Yeah, I can take. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, Kevin, I just have a quick question in terms of your comfort waiting on this deal. Would you have been comfortable going on the full year with Rutger still remaining at Michigan?
Well, again, I think, when you talk about making deals, it's about opportunity, it's about timing, it's about, what's in front of you. And, we spent our time, going over the different thought processes and obviously when this presented itself and it became real, we acted on it. So it's hard to, talk about hypotheticals, in this case, but, for us, when the opportunity was there to strike, we made the deal.
All righty, let's give it another go here, Scott.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
There we go. All right, sorry about that. I think I know how to do this by now, but just in terms of, have you had a chance in all this time to kind of, I mean, I know, you don't want to not draft certain players for certain reasons, but, have you thought about the American pipeline? Is that somewhere that you'd be maybe more hesitant to go to moving forward, Kevin?
No, for us, again, I challenge our scouts to, to rate the players as they see them. It's not about passports. It's not about pushing a player up or knocking a player down for any other reasons. Again, for us, I think it'd be a disservice to the organization to not act in that fashion. The draft, it's an art. It's not a science, and certainly everyone's lists, as we all see, come draft day is very, very different. So sometimes things fall into your lap and you have to be prepared to do them. Sometimes you wish things fell differently, but as far as the approach moving forward, that's not going to change. We still need to make sure that you rank the players the way they should be.
Sure, thanks for that. And just going back to trading Rutger, I mean, there was a lot of talk around the draft about potentially moving him. What made this deal make the most sense? Like, I mean, it literally is a 1-for-1 in terms of where he was picked. I mean, different years, obviously, but in terms of draft picks and all that. But what made this deal, and what other ones were maybe on the table, if you can speak to anything?
Well, so for us, obviously, we spent our time, talking through the various, different scenarios that might present themselves. There was lots of different talk at the draft of something, coming to fruition, but nothing that we, were prepared to act on came our way. So this, we shifted gears, after, the draft, and as an organization, I think went through all the different organizations, prospects, or different scenarios that might have appealed to us, and just methodically worked through those things. I would say there was a great deal of conversations that were had with various different teams. Some were very short. Some maybe had a little more legs, but this is the one ultimately that we felt is the proper direction for the organization.
Go back to Mike McIntyre. Go ahead, Mike.
Kevin, just I realize this is hypothetical because it didn't happen, but had Rutger signed, I imagine as an organization, were you prepared to have him, come to training camp, and if he had earned a spot on the team, that's where he would have started? There was nothing conveyed to him about where he would start next season and perhaps time in the American Hockey League. Like, can you just speak to whether that was a factor from your end at all here?
I guess I don't know if I totally understand the question, but I guess, like everything that is hypothetical is hypothetical. So, it's, again, we make our decisions, for the greater good of the club, and all the players that are on it, they earn their opportunities, and that's never going to change. Again, every situation, again, has its own kind of parameters around it or whatever. But, as far as, we're concerned here, training camp, from the drop of the puck at training camp, anybody, has a great shot at making this team, if they, deserve it and earn it. And, I don't think that changes much at all moving forward.
Go back to Murat. Go ahead, Murat.
Thanks, Gregor. Yeah, did he or his camp ever sort of ask for assurances about his path to the NHL, whether it was just a fair shot or 9 games or even more than that?
We've never had that conversation once.
Sure. And then also, also on the topic, I guess, of all of this. Actually, let me pivot. I also wanted to ask today about Cole Perfetti and conversations in that regard. I know camp's coming up. Sometimes these get done partway through camp. How are discussions going? How often are they happening? How close are you?
Again, I did have a conversation with his camp yesterday. Again, those discussions are ongoing. I think that when it comes to RFAs without arbitration rights, sometimes these things, do go on in the summer for various, different reasons. But, again, hopefully it's something that we get done, sooner rather than later. I know he's been out, I think, with guys like Scheif and JMO and Laus skating and stuff like that. So obviously, he's doing his part in getting ready for the season and looking forward to it.
Go back to Scott Billick. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, just to dovetail off of Murat there. Is long-term on the table for Cole on your side right now?
I'm not getting into any negotiations or any, conversations about ongoing negotiations.
Okay. You've probably seen all of his peers this summer sort of signing long-term. There's a lot of long-term deals for a lot of his peers this summer, guys who have come off their ELCs in the same draft year. Is that also, does that sort of give you some idea of where his camp might want to take it then?
Again, those kind of things are trying. Yeah, those kind of things are between us and the agent, and obviously, like I say, hopefully we come to an agreement sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Mitchell Clinton. Go ahead, Mitch.
Thanks, Gregor. Kevin, just a kind of a odd question kind of down the line here, but when I was talking to Yager a little while ago, I asked him, is this the first time you've ever been traded in your life? And he just kind of said, yeah, like this, you kind of realized it. I'm just curious from your guys' standpoint, obviously you talk to the player, but is it player development that would then maybe kind of help him through a lot of this stuff that he's probably experiencing for the first time as he prepares to come to a new organization?
Well, I think the good part about when a player comes from the CHL and has been drafted is they've gone to a training camp already, so they know what to expect going into the training camp and those type of things. Obviously, they've gone through development camps as well. It will be different, I'm sure, for him, changing organizations. But again, that's kind of why you have, like you say, the development side of things, and you have the team services side of things, and whether it's trainers or whether it's travel people, the logistics of all that is going to start moving, very, very quickly. And so again, I assume it's a whirlwind for him today. I talked to him, like I say, he was pretty excited. Again, a kid from the prairies to get to play for a prairie team, I think, is something that, he was pretty proud of.
We'll go to Paul Friesen from the Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Kevin. Apologize if you answered this before I got on, but we've heard some talk of how the handling of players like Perfetti and Ville Heinola as maybe a concern for other prospects. Have you responded to that here today?
Well, I don't know. I guess obviously, every player is different. I think that, certain situations for players, like Perfetti, we obviously started him at 19 years old. Unfortunately, he got injured, right away, or relatively right away when he came back from the World Juniors. And obviously a player like Ville, who made the team out of training camp last year and probably would have been in game one, breaks his ankle, and, is an unfortunate situation. So I think, again, younger players, there's ups, there's downs, there's different things that come a long way. I vividly remember talking to, Kyle Connor and his agent, when he got sent down, the second time, obviously for them, it could have gone one way or another. They could have taken it as a demotion, but he went down there, lit up the American League when the opportunity then presented itself. I think it was Perreault got hurt, and he came up and played. He never looked back, and just all those different situations. Every player, every individual, is different. And I look back at the way things worked out with a guy like Connor Hellebuck, where as an organization, once he had proved that he was ready. We sent a goalie down making $4+ million, I think it was, in order to make room for him. I think. You look at a lot of different situations. It all depends on the individuals, and everyone is different. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is no one gets put in front of the organization and the greater good of the collective team.
So based on what you've heard from agents, there's no concern on your part about that.
Well, I think there's always the want for younger players to get there fast. I think as an organization, and if you kind of do a real deep dive, it's more important to get there long than it is to get there fast. To stay, to become a pro and extend your career, as opposed to, try to get in there and not be ready. I think the National Hockey League, it's maybe a little bit more so now than it was because of the cap and different situations like that, where you have younger players coming in. But it's probably, in some cases, teams maybe kick themselves because they do rush them because of cap reasons or because of, those kind of things. And in the long run, the player doesn't necessarily reach their peak or their potential. So that's why, it is important to look at every situation, differently. And, so that's kind of how you have to approach it with younger players.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Everyone have a great day. Enjoy.
Thanks, guys.
I think your microphone got unplugged there. Might have to do a little troubleshooting, but what a press conference there from Winnipeg Jets GM Kevin Cheveldayoff after the team acquired Brayden Yager. Big blockbuster deal. The trade 1-for-1. Winnipeg Jets tweeting out the picture of the Bob McKenzie tweet from the original 1-for-1 trade, Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. And they also tweeted out Yager bombs. I'm sure Yager bombs going to be used and said quite a bit here. So I don't think you're working quite yet, but maybe I'll try that. How about now?
1, 2, 3. 1,
Yeah,
2,
you're
3.
good now. You're good now.
You can hear me now? All right, sounds good. Nice way to pick me up. Way to pick me up, Remo. Much like Chevy seemed to pick up the Jets in a tough situation, trading Rutger McGroarty. Listen, the wild thing that came out of that, and again, I wasn't sure how detailed Chevy would get into this, but that was a pretty straightforward, frank response about where this kind of went off the rails. And really no response. I mean, it just didn't feel right. I mean, I can understand why the organization was probably pretty bent about all of this. And, whether that is, I mean, we'll hear from Rutger at some point, presumably why he went to. I hope he's ready for October 19th when the Pittsburgh Penguins get to Winnipeg the day before their game on October 20th. Because everybody listen, he said a lot of the right things here in Winnipeg for a long time. And it's wild that came out of development camp. I mean, for crying out loud, that development camp was the biggest love-in that we've ever seen when it comes to prospects in and around the club. So it was pretty clear that they have never got an adequate answer from McGroarty, his agent, or his camp about what happened, where this went wrong. But at a certain point, we said before, you have to play the hand that you're dealt. This was the hand that we're dealt. And, for the Winnipeg Jets to turn McGroarty into Brayden Yager, drafted in the exact same position 1 year later, a center, and a kid that comes from not too far away from Saskatchewan after finishing up a championship season leading the Moose Jaw Warriors to the Memorial Cup and a WHL championship. A pretty nice return in all of this. And, we'll look forward to getting Brayden Yager on the program and speaking about this going forward. But this is one of those deals, Reem, that both Yager and McGroarty are going to be tied to each other pretty much for their entire careers. We'll always remember the guy that they picked. We'll always remember the guy that they traded for. And I have a feeling that even post-Sid, assuming Rutger is still with the Pittsburgh Penguins, those games will be a little extra spicy in the Peg in downtown at the Canada Life Center downtown.
Yeah, people are coming up with chants already. I'm seeing the Boo Birds come out in the chat. Fort Gary Q wants everyone to chant, "What's your problem?" And it really reminded me of that Seinfeld episode, Huss, where Jerry offers the girl pie and she doesn't give an answer and just shakes her head no. So that's kind of what I felt from Cheveldayoff's explanation, and I appreciate him being honest. Another chatter here thought, maybe the rumors were true that he did demand playing time, and Cheveldayoff is being a professional by not disclosing that. Now, this is all speculation, which is what we're great here at doing, but I thought Cheveldayoff, usually very tight-lipped, was open and forthcoming. Not maybe open and forthcoming about contract negotiations with RFA Paul Perfetti, which I think was to be expected, but this was about
nice swing, Billick, by the way. He did his best asking the question. Yeah,
you got to ask. Hey, you don't get an answer if you don't ask. And I thought, we talking about the trade, and these are two players that will be tied together and will be following their careers, as neither of them have made any impact at all at the NHL. And we'll have to see how it goes going forward. And I am looking forward to Rutger's, what he's going to say. I haven't seen any press conference or anything. I'm sure it'll be asked. I'm sure there will be Winnipeg media, asking more questions. But so just to be clear, he was saying that Rutger met them last year before, and he said, or was it this year? And he said he was at development camp last year and he put it on. Like, it wasn't before development camp this year. It's like, man, I was confused about the development camp putting on the jersey.
No, he said it dated back to development camp.
Okay, so
when he put the jersey on and it just didn't feel right in the middle of signing every autograph and being all buddy with all the guys and saying all the right things to the media. Like, who knows whether that's true? I mean, when you're just saying it just doesn't feel right, you're like that. That's not an answer. That's a non-answer.
That's true.
So, I mean, whether they're hiding something, whether it was a Winnipeg thing, whether he wanted to play in America, whether he didn't get along with a coach or Jimmy Roy or Mike Keane, like, they don't know. They asked the questions directly, face to face, and didn't get an answer. So, that's got to be incredibly frustrating. To be honest, I think you probably owe people a little bit more than that. I would. I mean, these are major business decisions. You're talking with people's careers, and if you've got a legitimate reason or something like that, say it. That just never came to wait. And listen, the Jets will wait it out. And I think maybe when they first got inklings that this was the case, they thought, let's just get this. Let's get to development camp, see if we can make things better. But it seemed like that. Certainly, what I took from that is that it became a more hard line from the McGroarty camp that he wasn't going to sign here and, figure it out from there. And that this whole business with him going back to Michigan, it was just him using the Michigan program, which had been very, very good to him, to try to get his way to move to a different organization. It's come today. He's probably doing the captain's skates right now and then signed his contract and leaves them in the dust after committing to them for a third season, where he was likely going to be the captain of the club if he hadn't been named it already. So listen, a lot of the shine of the character and the leadership of Rutger McGroarty, at least I think to people in Winnipeg, has come off. For him, he goes to Pittsburgh where any sort of a me first attitude isn't going to go very far in that dressing room with Sidney Crosby. And I have full confidence that, Rutger actually does go to a place that if some of that, like if you want to call it entitlement, selfishness, whatever, that some people are alleging has crept in, that won't fly within Pittsburgh. And he'll have one of the great mentors in hockey history as the captain of his club to learn for. But for the Winnipeg Jets, they move forward. They turn Rutger McGroarty into another very exciting prospect, one that I think probably connects with the fans. I think we've seen it already today. I mean, people very excited about the return on this. I think people had soured on the thought of Rutger just because of everything that had happened. And that's not going to change after hearing what Kevin Cheveldayoff just had to say about the answer or lack of answers they got for why he had decided not to sign in Winnipeg. It's not like he said that right out the gate. I mean, he was here for development camp, certainly charmed all of us when he came on this program and many others, but is now a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Jets move forward with Brayden Yager, and we'll look forward to talking to him on the program. And, of course, getting him to Penticton for the Young Stars tournament, which I think is going to be a lot more interesting now with our first chance to see Brayden as part of the organization. And then as a 19-year-old coming into camp, trying to force the Winnipeg Jets' hand and maybe get into some NHL games and give them a very tough decision as to whether to send him back to the Moose Jaw Warriors, the defending WHL champions, or to begin his career here in Winnipeg. I'm with Kat. I think the smart money is probably more likely on the WHL, but it would be a hell of a story for the Winnipeg Jets if he got traded here, showed up in camp, and just gave them no choice and played his way onto the team. That'd be a pretty nice way for this all to end. But whether it's this season or next season, expect Brayden Yager to be a big, big part of the Winnipeg Jets' future. Again, 1 year younger than Rutger McGroarty, so maybe not quite as quote-unquote NHL ready, but at the same point, a kid that has just had an incredible WHL career and we'll look forward to seeing what he can do in the peg. Certainly not going to change the line of topics on the show for the next little while. Of course, tomorrow will be a big one. We'll have Ed Tate come in and talk about the upcoming Bomber game tomorrow night. But perfect day to have Mike McIntyre as well with us on the show. Mike was front and center in that press conference yesterday, and we'll have Mike on the program yesterday to break this all down and get his thoughts, and certainly continuing to get thoughts from everybody in chat. This has been certainly the biggest day of the summer today, Reem. And it was great to see so many people that had maybe been on a bit of a different summer routine get back to the routine we need them to do, and that's be here on WSD every day.
Yeah, when there's Jets breaking news, everyone knows where to go. So thank you, Cheveldayoff and the Jets, for making this trade this morning at 11.
Yeah, not at 3:45.
Tomorrow, which happens quite often. And, they did the press conference at 3 o'clock. We're really appreciative of them being so considerate, doing it after the show. Do a little bonus, extended content here. I'm having a lot of fun reading the chat. He commented what the line was: the jersey didn't feel right. T. Will is like, this is all like they gave him the wrong size jersey. It's that person's fault. And people wanting a doesn't feel right chant. No, I don't know if that's word for word, but again, I'm going to go back to the Seinfeld. And I find now that, when you Seinfeld references, it used to be on TV all the time, but the kids these days, they don't know the old references anymore, like Simpsons and Seinfeld. So, but we can use it here. And we'll see what happens. I'm a lot of intrigue now. I think it feels like we got a new prospect because you weren't really sure what the return was going to be. Sure, every Montreal fan, thought maybe they'd get McGroarty for free, but not the case.
Well, that's Montreal.
Chevy pulling a rabbit out of his
round
hat
pick
again. I'm sure some fan base out there thought they would get him for nothing, but I think he did pretty well. You don't see that too often, Huss. The same pick overall, different years.
Oh,
traded for each other.
Very memorable trade. Very memorable trade, and we'll be talking about it for a long time here, amongst others that have been pulled off by Kevin Cheveldayoff. I see Connor in chat. Big show tomorrow. Damn right. Connor's going to be in with me. Remis is going to be away for actually a while, so you'll get lots of Connor over the next remainder of this week and next week. And we got to shout out our girl Bailey the intern, who is always the number one Rutger McGroarty fan. I'm sure this is a tough day for Bailey, but Bailey has already changed her YouTube handle to Bailey the intern, Yager's number one fan. So the Jets move on, Jet fans move on, we move on. Circle October 20th on your calendar, folks. Get your tickets for that game. You can all in person at Canada Life Center. Let Rutger McGroarty know how you feel about how this all went down, and we'll get a chance to see Brayden Yager here in Winnipeg after the prospects go to Penticton, and obviously a part of rookie camp, and then for the main training camp for the Winnipeg Jets. Great show today. As I said, thank you again to Chevy and those guys for making the deal in the morning, as opposed to dropping at us after we've been talking for 2 hours about a less topical thing. But certainly the Bombers will be a big topic tomorrow. Ed Tate coming on. We'll do the NFL Notebook and the latest on the NFL preseason heading into the year with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And we'll have an extended segment with Mike McIntyre, who I believe is planning. He probably will be at Southwood tomorrow. But looking forward to that. I'm going to warn you right now. I don't think we're going to be able to do a marble race tomorrow. I don't want to mutiny here, but we're trying to piece this together with Remis away, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to do it next week. But I'm just warning you in advance. There is a likelihood potentially of no marble race tomorrow. I will do my best to make it up to you. We were going to actually do something today, but now with it being well past 3:30, that won't be the case. So tomorrow will be lots on the fallout of this trade. We'll see whether we get anything from Rutger McGroarty. I'm sure he'll be speaking in Pittsburgh at some point. And he's going to have to speak in Winnipeg here heading into that game. 5th game of the season. The Penguins in town. What a way to get going here for another season of Winnipeg Jets hockey. Welcome aboard. Welcome to the Peg, Brayden Yager. And it's almost as if we never knew you, Rutger. But we'll see you on the 20th of October here in the Peg. Great stuff with Remis getting us on. He's going to take off for a while, but Connor and I will be holding it down all next week and tomorrow on the program. And again, Mike McIntyre tomorrow with much more. And we'll look forward. I'm sure there'll be plenty of reaction to this trade as the day continues. So we'll have more of that tomorrow for you on the show, as well as get ready for the big one between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Thanks again to Marshall Ferguson, to Ken Wiebe. Good luck to Ken tomorrow in his semifinal at the Tamarack. And, of course, Derek Taylor from X80 CGOB, who'll have the call tomorrow of the Bomber game. And, of course, the Jets timing this press conference for 3 p.m. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Certainly had a lot of interest in here. The final poll came in for the Not Autocorp question of the day. Do you like the return for Rutger McGroarty? I think it was 87% yes. So it seems like the fans are on board with this. It was a tough situation. Cheveldayoff dealt with it, and the Jets move forward with Brayden Yager as one of their top prospects now that Rutger McGroarty is a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Have a great night tonight, and we will see you tomorrow live at 1 p.m. with much more on the trade and tomorrow's Bomber Ticats game on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We'll see you then.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at Winnipeg Sports